I would hate for people to not witness this bunny fart conversation.
Bunny fart remix. Remix.
They're inaudible. How do you remix something that has no sound? It's like remixing
no
a tree.
bunny
Well,
fart.
it would be like
no
this,
bunny
like-
fart.
No, Keith. We're not remixing Oh No Necromancer with bunny farts.
Butt sprinkles.
Christ. Nerds.
Bunny fart
Well,
sprinkles. Oh my god.
I thought guinea pigs have sprinkles and bunnies have pellets.
I don't know, but I'm ready to go. I have started streaming. I'm ready
Holy
to
shit,
on this
fart
shit.
sprinkles predates Shell.
Wait, what?
I just realized that. Because fart sprinkles is from one of the first podcasts, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
It was a joke about how long the podcast was or something. It's like,
Oh.
comment this if you've actually reached the end of this video.
Yeah, you're right. Fart sprinkles was our code word for if people watch the entire podcast. And lo and behold, fair number of people. When is the D&D gonna start? We're not
It happened
doing
yesterday,
D&D today.
apparently, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, 21 hours ago. Sorry.
Yeah, we flipped things around for reasons. You guys want to do the podcast today?
Well, no, also Keith had to do...
Imperium.
Yeah, Keith was at Imperium, and he wasn't included in D&D because it wasn't
No.
cool enough.
All right, are we ready to start
Yes.
recording?
3, 2, 1, go.
What's a podcast? It's so long. It's like it's been so long, guys.
It's been a month since either of anyone besides me and Wander's been on a podcast.
It's
And
like
it's been like
a
3 weeks since we were on a podcast. It happens on Saturdays a lot.
Yeah, it's like translating an ancient word that I haven't seen in a long, long time. Like ancient Babylonian podcasts where internet speeds were really bad back in the day. You know, somebody had to physically come by with a stone tablet and give it to you. Pretty slow process.
Can you
I guess
imagine,
that's just called a book.
50
Well-
years from now, there are going to be people that are, like, going back through old podcasts to, like, learn about people from our time.
I was so upset actually when my dad always had this old replica of the Rosetta Stone. But I'm like, oh look, it's so cute. It's like, you know, yay big. It was like maybe 2 feet by 1 foot and stuff. And then I find out that it's about what 6 feet tall or something.
That's what made it useful. If the Rosetta Stone was actually 2 feet, then people would be like, "Oh, that's a nice little like thing."
When I was a kid, we had to chisel Oh No Necromancer, and we had to do it uphill both ways.
We did
Yeah,
our
there's gonna
remixing
be-
live on the Turnstone.
If they're
On
if
the
they're on the turnstone,
It's awful grinding noises.
Yeah.
Nothing actually useful.
Horrible.
and like accompanied by the sack butt.
The sack butt.
Now, there's gonna be historians watching this podcast. I assume we're gonna be incredibly culturally significant in about 100 years.
Obviously. When we're
And
mega
if
PewDiePie.
I'm still alive watching a documentary about myself, then I guess I pulled it off. Whatever it is, I must have
Whatever
done it well.
is. Congratulations, Bird. You officially did it. The much fathomed it that everyone has been after all these years. You've
I
done
survived.
it.
I survived 2016 and 2017. That's
Oh my
an
god.
accomplishment.
Hey, you're not famous enough to die off during those purges.
Ouch!
You're gonna have to wait 100 years.
Ouch!
3017? Oh wait, that's the wrong number.
3017.
It's not even close. Not even close.
Wow.
I
You
iterated
have
them the
very high
wrong
expectations for Bird's longevity.
When
Bird,
he's
share
just a head in
share
a
your
jar.
secrets with me. I would not mind living another 1,000 years, maybe.
Would you like future pickled Berg?
The trick to living 1,000 years
Bird.
is to get a lot of money and then buy a lot of like, you know, life expanding remedies like, you know, injecting your blood with crocodile blood and injecting your liver with crocodile liver. Like,
No,
it's
the
gonna-
secret The secret is to get good. You're just gonna have
I
to get
think the
good.
secret is to get good.
Yeah.
Just could. You
What's
know how
that?
you're alive right
What's that?
now?
You died at 78?
Okay. So that's a topic.
I
So-
think
Okay.
the only feasible way someone can extend their lifespan like that is either they figure out the secret to preventing our cells from stripping off their telomeres whenever their DNA
They are
gets,
actually
like,
working on that, but that's a thing
Yep.
that we should talk about when it's actually
or they
like,
find a way to clone our bodies and transplant our brains and spinal
That's
columns
gross.
into the
That
new
doesn't fix
person
the
that could have
decaying
been
brain
you.
part.
yeah.
Oh,
So
I suppose it can.
on the topic of getting good, as this
Mm-hmm.
is a constant gripe of mine. So I've been playing Slay the Spire a lot lately because that game is fantastic.
Have you gotten
as
good?
I have beaten the game like 20 times now.
That's a
but
problem. What the fuck?
It's-
You've only been playing it for like a week.
Yeah, so
He's been playing it every single night, and it
I've
drives
pretty
me
much
nuts.
run out of other games to stream. Kind of like there are other games,
There are other games you
but
can stream.
most of them one don't net me like 150 people on Twitch, so there's that. But also
Oh.
like most of them aren't nearly as fun. Like I had a run where there's a mechanic in Slay the Spire called Exhaust, which if you play a card, it deletes itself from your deck until the next battle.
Mhm.
And so I had an item that whenever you
I feel
play
like
a
before
card,
that
with the-
we should tell people what Slay the Spire is.
yeah, okay.
'Cause you skipped
so
that whole
let's-
part.
Sorry. So let's back up. Slay the Spire is a roguelike that uses a card, or like a TCG style system for getting your attack cards, your defend cards, spells, effects, so on and so forth.
Now, did the creepy slug thing with the giant teeth introduce you in the very beginning, or like talk with you?
You mean the whale?
No. There was a scene you're going, yes, hello.
Oh, that's one of the random events. There are
Oh.
random events that you run into. So effectively you go through the world kind of FTL style, with like branching paths and stuff like that. And so there's like monster tiles, mid-boss
It's
tiles.
very FTL structured as far as the map goes.
Yes. And there's like multiple worlds that you go through. It's cool. But so there's also kind of the like Risk of Rain style or like Binding of Isaac style relic system where you get like items that permanently affect your character and give you like bonuses.
Mhm.
And some will just be basic, like you get 1 extra strength for the rest of the game,
Yeah.
or another
It's
one
from the list
is-
of roguelites that where as you play through a run, a series of icons populate the top left of the corner that are your build you've gotten so far.
Yes. And also as you fight enemies, you unlock new cards. So for beating a run, you get new cards, but every time you beat an enemy, it pulls from a list of rarer cards than when you started with. And so some of them will just be like basic hit an enemy for 15 damage instead of 6. Or hit an enemy and draw some cards or stuff like that. And so for the first couple of runs, it's generally pretty generic, just basic hit the enemy, maybe draw, discard, get some extra boosts here and there. But as you get further and further into it, you get like more and more insane builds. So going back to what I was describing, I had it was a power. Powers you play once, and then they permanently modify your character for the rest of that fight.
And your character always looks like this sort of.
There's
goat
2 characters. There's the Silent and the
thing.
Ironclad.
Okay.
And each have completely different deck styles and hands and stuff. So they play the same. Like
you think-
you still have attacks and defends, but the things that you do with them are just wildly different.
And you don't believe they're going to add any more subtypes to the game, or are they?
They are. They have at least
The-
one more class
the
coming
lev-
in, and
Yeah, the character creator or character selection screen clearly has a 3rd slot on it that's just not doesn't have anything in it.
and I hope they add more than that because it is probably the most interesting roguelike I've played in a while.
It's a neat game.
Yeah,
I
it is.
immediately pulled the cable on playing it any more of it though.
Yeah,
I was like,
well,
I beat
you
it.
probably
I,
knew it was
I
going to
beat
suck
it.
you in.
I beat it my first try. I'm like, this is neat. And I'm like, hope you liked it. If you want, go check it out. If you like it, and then I'm like, I'm moving on because I'm like, I do not want to play a fucking card game on my channel because
is-
of how the community responds to card games. They're so miserable.
Well, it's one of those things where they try to tell you what the optimal moves.
Yeah,
and you're
so
terrible.
people will
Oh, the whale.
people will 100% like micromanage me when I'm streaming live. Like, they were
Yep.
actively demanding that I just follow their directions instead. And I'm like, no, that's stupid and boring.
I can't
I'm
even
gonna
imagine
keep doing what I want.
live. It's annoying enough when they're talking about all your mistakes in the past tense.
Yep.
Yeah,
Um,
it's sort of like how going through like puzzle games and like some people might
You didn't solve this optimally.
or
Unwatchable.
or they try telling you the solution and you already got it, but 2 episodes down the line or an episode down the line, and it's just like, you
So-
know.
So, like,
Oh.
it's one thing when you're playing like Dark Souls and a bunch of other games where people are like just bitching that you just didn't do well enough.
Uh-huh.
But in a card game, the correct answer is right on the screen, and oftentimes there is a literal correct answer on how to play at any given moment.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so like you will hear about all of them, and you just and
Yeah,
it's
I will
always accompanied with like
frequently-
insults and just the worst community. I'm like, yeah, I do not want to appeal to this community. I'm out.
That's why Total Biscuit had to quit playing Hearthstone. Was he said he
Yeah,
couldn't
because
Hearthstone,
people are
oh.
bad.
He said like he every time he played a card and he like recognized a turn or two later that he'd played suboptimally, he was just like it just would ruin his mood. It like pre-ruined
Yeah.
it before he even finished the game.
Because
It
he
was
knew
like,
that
oh,
As
people
a
would be.
recoil, yeah.
Yeah. So
Because in a vacuum, when you're just playing a card game, like, I screwed up, and I know where I screwed up, but whatever. Which is what happened to me yesterday playing Twilight Imperium. It's like, whatever, I screwed up various points, but it's just that. But
Yeah.
having the audience just rally about how you screwed up, and when I make a mistake in a video game now, not only do people leave comments about it, but then they contact me on Twitter about it, and then they come to my Discord and tell me about it. I'm like, come on, can we just leave that on the video, and I
Wow.
can look at the video when I want to look at the video about my mistakes? Because I don't
Yeah, I
want it to be on every
So-
single thing I can open.
Can I finish my story before we like get too far on this? Because this is like actually a specific event for all of this.
Oh, okay.
So- I have this mechanic called Exhaust. Whenever I use a card, it gets burnt, it leaves my hand and deck and won't come back until the next fight, but I have another effect from a relic that makes it so whenever I burn a card, I get a new completely random card pulled from the entire deck. And I've got a third card that makes it so any skill is free. Because cards are split up into attack, skill, and power, and those are the 3. So half of my cards are just free, and every skill that I play gets exhausted because of another effect. So
and then you get more cards.
a solid third of my deck is just suddenly free, and I will go from turn to turn, dumping 20 plus cards on an enemy when usually you play 3 to 4 maybe. So like I straight up killed mid bosses without them even taking a turn, and I 2-shot the second to last boss in a number of things.
And people will still criticize that strategy.
And people were loving it, except
Okay.
for one guy who I don't know what was wrong.
Well, wasn't he
I
like,
mean,
this is too easy?
so-
this is
no,
terrible?
no,
No, it wasn't that.
So the thing was, I was playing pretty suboptimally. I was just like, I'm just going to drag every card that is free up, and it will work out no matter what. Because, like, I'm playing 5 times the number of cards that anybody else normally could in this situation, so I literally don't need to care here. It did end up biting me in the ass for the final boss because he had a 12-card maximum cap before he took his turn, so I actually had to, like, think about what I was doing, but whatever. But so this guy was sitting there watching me win. Like, I 2-shot a boss, and slightly later he's like, I can't handle how bad these plays are. I'm leaving. And he left, and he never came back. And I was sitting there dumbfounded, because I had to get up and get some water in the middle of this run. Because this was, like, right before Divinity and stuff, and I wanted to have, like, kind of a fresh voice for that. And I was sitting there dumbfounded as I was, like, guzzling water, being like, but I won. This is my strongest run ever, and yet it offended you so badly you left and never came back. And, like, he had been an audience member for most roguelikes I played, but the moment I started playing a card game roguelike, it became unacceptable for him. And
I mean,
I still...
Wow, you're too
I mean,
good at winning.
People aren't even fair when you literally just come to a left-right intersection and you're like, I'll try going left. Like, how could you be so stupid not to go right. It was so obvious because I know everything already. So once you have like actual, like more reason for people to be a bit bothered because there are actually optimum plays, people are gonna lose their shit. Like completely lose it.
It begs the question of, I mean, most Let's Players, the games that they're playing are for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where there is a learning process and a learning curve, and if you're not allowed to experiment with that, then...
Oh yeah, my Shadow Tactics Blades of the Shogun video. I was doing fine, but the comments are constantly just like nagging and awful, being like, how can you be so bad at this game? It's a great game and a dumb player. And I'm like, I have never played this before. I've never played a game like this before. It's a real-time tactical stealth game. Like, that is so far outside my wheelhouse, I don't even know what it is. And I beat the game perfectly fine, but it was unacceptable because I kept making bad plays here and there.
I get a comment like that like every week about Yakuza. And it's funny because like they'll like get to like the first fights in the game, and I'm like, I say at the beginning that I've never played a Yakuza game before when I started it, and the game is so heavy on like visual novel stuff, especially at the beginning when it's setting it up, that like the time it takes to get to your first proper fights where you're doing more than the most basic stuff takes so long that like, yeah, like by the time I get to those, like I barely know how to play the game, and people are like, oh my god, you are the worst Yakuza player I've ever seen. And I'm like, this is like the first fight in the game. I don't understand.
That'd be like somebody saying like, you're the worst at West of Loathing. Like, really easy single player game.
I mean, maybe what it is
one.
Those first few episodes when it's just story time and plot introduction might actually get invested in you, and then when the actual game begins, if you're not performing as well, then it's like,
yeah,
it's like that with... I see what it's talking about. It's like, you know, on the first 2 dates or whatever, you think like, oh, this is great, and then date number 3 comes around, and then you find out that it's Keith, and you're like, oh, never mind.
Speaking of Keith, you've been playing Elex recently. How's that going for you?
I want to play more of it, and I binged too much of it at the beginning, and it's bothering me that I haven't gotten to play it again.
That actually is kind of weirdly my state. I like the game, almost ironically, which I think you have to.
Well put.
People look funny.
Yeah.
I look over at the screen, I'm like, huh.
But for that game specifically, I started playing and immediately was like clued into the fact that it controls like ass, and the combat's really awkward, and like a number of other things. And I was making fun of the character for being generic deep-voiced McBroodington.
But he's bald.
Yeah, okay, so that's a new one. He doesn't have a nice head of hair, but whatever. But so I'm kind of making fun of it. Not terribly mercilessly so. I was just like, this is not the hill I'm going to die on for this game. But I'd like to point out, because it embodies everything that I have trouble with because of this. But, so I made fun of it for a little bit and run off.
I'm confused why you can't make your own character.
Yeah, I know, because he's like the most generic person ever. You could totally swap the hair out.
Well, also,
there's
have
like
you had any character building?
I've seen like one scene that has like painted frames of the character doing stuff. I'm like, you could have just not.
Yeah, everything is in-engine.
Like that's the only part of the game that has a predetermined appearance. Is like those painted intros that they do sometimes when they don't want to do real cutscenes. And like that's
except for like. So, as you get further in the game, you get these, like, flashbacks, which are the only actual cutscenes in the game, really. And they're just deep-voiced McBroodington standing there and talking to other deep-voiced McBroodington, who I honestly cannot tell the difference between any of them, except for the slight variations in deep voice and brooding, which gets kind of confusing. But for that game specifically, so I made fun of it for a while. And then, more or less, finally left the tutorial area, took a left, and saw a dude, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna try and fight a guy, let's see what real combat's like, and immediately one-shots me, and I'm like, well, this is kind of dumb, and everybody's like, it's a Piranha Bytes game! Didn't you know that, like, combat's supposed to be really, really hard in the beginning of the game, and, like, everything can kill you? And I'm like, no, like,
no.
The first couple enemies you fight in the game are rats. The second enemy that you run into is some dude with a sword that can one-shot you. And it's like, this is... I'd almost say Dark Souls, except for...
There's very much a From Software style, like, cult following thing where like some group of people has just accepted that this is what type of game this developer makes, but it doesn't have this mass appeal where everyone knows what that means yet. So every time somebody comes in for fresh, they're like, what? I don't understand. So like I've just been kind of sitting back and just observing what the hell this game is, because it's been intriguing to just figure out what I'm even dealing with. But I had the same experience where I do the intro area, meet the first side quest, I meet the first potential party member character, and he's like escorting you to town, and I wander off I get to the bridge, that little like weird low bridge that's on a river stream, and I turn right, and this guy with a glowing axe just like two-shots me, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
what?
You probably ran into one of the Albs, maybe.
He wasn't an alb.
Or
he's
no,
one of the people
there's a
that has,
Reaver
like, the
camp.
green. He has like the
Yeah.
green axes that they all
Yeah,
have
it was a
that are, like,
Venom axe.
glowy.
You ran into a Reaver camp. I ran
So
into that group later.
What's the gameplay of this game again? I kind of
It's-
missed that.
it's
Is it
kind
like
of
an
a
action
cross-
RPG?
Yeah,
it's
so
a third-person Western action RPG.
It
so
sort of looks Bioware-ish, but
yeah,
not
it's
quite.
kind of
Gotcha.
like if somebody saw a Bioware game and it's like, let's tack on some almost Souls-like combat to that.
Okay, I can
Yeah.
see that
Also,
actually being kind of cool. Let me.
The
pull up
idea of
what
it is really
puts in
cool.
my
Also,
head
there are
here.
interesting factions. I inquire most about the factions and how Wander just couldn't tolerate that one because they're like, you can't bring out your map.
Yeah, so the first faction you run into are the Berserkers, who effectively... So the world got
Anti-technology.
wrecked by a giant asteroid, and before that it was a fairly high-tech society. And even post-asteroid, it was fairly high-tech, and the main villains are these ultra-high-tech people, and so the Berserkers saw that, and they're like, nah, screw it, technology is like half the reason why we're in this problem. We're gonna go turbo Amish, and also learn magic, because I guess the asteroid brought that with it too. Which is really neat until they start
Amish
yelling at you.
wizards, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, the idea of them is great, except for the main character has an implant in his arm that's his inventory, his map, his level up interface,
Your
or whatever.
HUD, essentially.
Your HUD. So every time you open that up or use the jetpack on your back, people will stand, like, anybody nearby will yell at you. Sometimes multiple people being like, hey, put that away. Don't you know technology is not allowed here?
It's like playing GoldenEye where people yell at you for looking at your watch.
Yes. And so at one point I was standing in the middle of the town managing my inventory to figure out, like, I got a bunch of new items, you know, I got to figure out what's worth selling, what's worth not. And there were some Berserkers that were moving crates back and forth. And every time they would go by, they're like, hey, put that away. And so I had one guy say that exact line at me 3 times. And I knew it was him because he got stuck walking into me and the NPC next to me. And he couldn't get around. So he would, every, say, 20, 30 seconds, repeat his line. Because it had gone long
You're just
enough.
looping.
Yeah, so I was just like, well, screw this faction. I'm going to go join the Space Mormons. And that's what I did.
Space Mormons.
So the other 2 factions are the Outlaws,
Wait,
who are just kind of
haven't
like...
you watched The Expanse?
Yes, I have.
Which has Space Mormons?
Exactly.
I was wondering where they came from.
Yeah. So there's
Well, we
the...
haven't seen season 2, and
the
I want
the
to.
important thing to introduce about this game and what its core conceit is, which hasn't really been covered yet, and I don't think you mentioned it last podcast either, is that its basic idea is to take the 3 most popular settings for Western RPGs and mash them into one setting.
Yep.
So it's
Oh,
a,
'cause
you have the
so
Mad
it's a-
Max
it's a
game.
fantasy RPG, a sci-fi RPG, and a wasteland RPG.
It's just like,
Yep.
what's it called? Yeah, I'll think of it later.
To the point where you basically just have a map that's practically a circle with 3 dividing lines, and then in it is a wasteland area, a fantasy area, and like a snowy tech area.
See,
Yep.
that sounds kind of hella lame.
It's lame, but it's also kind of nice. If you get bored of one area, you can move to the other one, and it's not so bad.
That's like something I'd expect out of an MMO. Is like, this is the science fiction continent, and this is the city that is like medieval stuff.
Well, in most games, I mean, even some of the old school ones where they had themed environments and dungeons and stuff. I mean, there's the forest.
Yeah,
There's the
but I
island,
expect that from like
there's the
Mario.
volcano.
It's very derivative
Or every
almost
Zelda
to the point
game.
of being painful.
Mhm.
Because, like, the dialogue system is very kind of, maybe not BioWare-y, maybe old BioWare. You know, you have your, like, options, and it's usually, like, jerkish option, greedy option, nice option.
But the
stuff
good
like
news
that.
is they've got like the more New Vegas situation and classic CRPG type dialogue
Yeah.
where there's tons of skill check options.
Yes,
Hmm.
there are. Though, for like the very beginning of the game, none of them matter. And then, like, after a certain point, you kind of hit a critical mass where you can actually go fight things, at which point you become comically overleveled and suddenly you win every skill check forever. And there's,
Yeah.
like, a midpoint where it's properly balanced. So, I'm level 22 in the game, 23, and I have so many skills and skill points and, like, good equipment that nothing threatens me anymore. And, like, I literally have mind control powers. So if
Is it-
somebody disagrees with me, I can just, like, you know, Jedi mind trick them into doing what I want.
So what faction did Keith end up joining then?
I don't think he's far enough in yet. It takes a
Ah.
while.
Last
Is
time we
this-
talked, you hadn't joined one in either.
No.
Is it one of those games where it's like balanced to people that just do like the main quest, and if you like do a
No,
little bit
'cause
more than
if
that,
you-
or
wait,
what?
Wait, don't you
only
have
do
to
the
have
main
joined a
quest?
faction if you have the mind control clip?
He did.
Chip?
Wait.
You joined the Space Mormons.
Yeah, I joined the
Clerics.
clerics. They're the
Clerics.
ones that teach you the mind control.
Yeah.
Because I was so sick of being yelled at by.
Yeah, that's the other odd thing, Bert, is that there's three separate factions that are each a separate setting, and then you're joining one of those factions determines what class you are.
Yes.
But you
Though-
joined the faction like dozens of hours into playing it.
Yeah. And you have like introductory quests. It's fairly long and drawn out getting there. The unfortunate part is the factions are kind of the most interesting part of the game. The actual plot is kind of painfully generic. It's like, you got betrayed. Here's this faction that betrayed you. They're also the villains. You have to fight against them. Oh, they're vaguely ominously evil all over the place, and they've got some kind of like
Oh, the
hive mind overlord. That yeah,
sounds
the
like,
magisters.
sounds like that's what
everything
they
else.
do. Like when people
Yeah.
talk about these games by this developer, the first thing they mention is factions. That seems to be the consistent variable.
Yeah.
I think part of it is you described how it was the means to choose your class. Most games start off with it. I think it's nice that you get to have
So-
that choice, but later it's like story driven as opposed to just a choice that you
Yeah.
made at the very beginning.
The main problem is like you spend all this time joining these factions and kind of getting to know them and dealing with their like internal issues and stuff. And then once you join them, it's the telltale effect of
The payoff is no longer there.
they
The story is just
yeah, so I joined the clerics and the first mission they gave me was hand some soup out to people and I think go fight something, and then I rank up immediately. And then the next one is we have some deserters that you need to go kill, and also go mind control 3 people for us. I do that and I rank up to max rank. And so it kind of like the moment you join the faction, they become uninteresting. You know, I was hoping that there would be like, you know, a plot line there, but they didn't have the budget for that. The struggle was getting there in
Well-
the first place, and then once you're actually there, there's nothing because that's locked off to a
So it's like
third of
there's
the
a
people.
whole
You would
story
essentially be
for
playing-
introducing each faction, but then once you're in each faction, they're essentially like a Bethesda faction,
Yeah,
Right,
where you
pretty
like
much.
do this one mission to gain 1 rank, then do this one mission to gain
Oh,
1
you,
rank,
you
then
walk
do this
into
mission to
mean-
gain 1
the
rank.
guild hall, and there's one person that you talk to every time.
Go to this one cave and kill the bad orc who is bad.
Yeah, pretty much.
It would almost be like in those old RTS games where you would play a faction and they had a completely separate campaign storyline for that faction.
Yep.
Like, so you guys are missing out on what could be a faction-based game where, like, you essentially have 3 games in one. It gives you the incentive to play the other factions in another playthrough, but
They're not
They're not.
interesting enough to really justify it. So one
Sucks.
thing, I guess, that would kind of highlight it. Sorry
So
to
the
keep
tyranny
going.
problem.
Yeah, kinda. So one of the problems I ran into is I got a quest from the clerics, the faction I joined, and it was this lady who's like, okay, they won't tell me the truth on our like holy scriptures, and I want to see it myself. And I want to know what our prophet actually wrote. There's a holy book down in the archives. Go get it for me. You can either sneak in and steal it, join the clerics, and then just go grab it, or hack into the computer system, register yourself as a authorized like user, and go take it yourself. And I just went with the easy option. Joined the clerics, walked in, stole their most holy of texts in front of everybody, walked out the door with it. It's like if What's the?
Did you have to rank up to like
What are the
a
holy?
high position first?
It's like if I just walked in and walked off with the Declaration of Independence or something from the Library of Congress, and nobody bat an eye on it because hey, he's part of the faction. He's allowed to do this, even though like the person that gave me the quest was also part of the faction, so I was very confused. I just handed off to her, and she's like, "I'll let you know if there's anything interesting that I find in here," and she never does. And I'm like,
They must have never found anything interesting in it then.
Yeah, I guess. I guess the 10 commandments of the clerics are do technology and mind control shit, and that's it.
There has to
That's
be more
a-
to them than
that's
that.
what I was
Does that
thinking.
round up to 10? Is that where you're getting at?
Round up to
Yeah,
10
well-
from 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, mind control and shit have like if 5 to 6 is mind control shit, and then 1 to 4.
10
Yeah.
Commandments of Hypnotoad. Praise Hypnotoad, praise Hypnotoad, praise Hypnotoad.
And I don't know. It's a neat game, but it's also one of those where it's so big that they, as a studio of like 10 to 20 people, like it's a small company, couldn't hope to populate it with enough interesting things. There's another companion quest where your guy, this guy grabs you by the side of the road and he's like, "You gotta help me, you know, these people are out to get me. I need you to protect me. Meet me by the city and we'll kind of get to the bottom of this." And main character's like, "Okay." So you meet him by the city. You find the guy that's handing out the bounties on this guy and you confront him. And he's like, "I ain't telling you shit." And then you threaten him vaguely and he's like, "I'm telling you everything except for who hired me." And so he pretty much outs every single bounty hunter he handed the bounties to, which coincidentally is people from the companions, you know, deep dark past. And so you walk up to them, and every time you talk to them, you're like, you know, "Why are you doing this?" And they're like, "Why don't you ask him?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure." But before I can do that, they immediately fight me. So I can't even like resolve this peacefully, apart from maybe throwing money at them to sell the bounty back to me. But you know, they kind of played up that every person that this guy ever met and like worked with hates his guts for some reason, but no one will tell you why, especially not him. So you get to the final guy, and I walk up to him, and he's not associated with the guy at all. He's just some random dude that the companion pissed off in passing. And I'm like, "Who are you and why? What do you want with this guy? Why don't you ask him?" And then the immediate next thing that happened
Lord, it's a
was I was given
cult of passive aggressive people.
I was given
That then are very
so
aggressive.
before I could, well, sort of, before I could actually talk to my companion and ask him why this man would possibly hate him.
Oh, you have companions? by
Yeah, you have
yourself?
companions. I think there's 6 of them.
Okay.
But so before I can ask my companion why this guy hates him, I'm given the 3 options of spare, spare and forgive, or just outright murder. I think there was like
Wait, the guy or your companion?
the other guy. You can't murder
Oh,
your companion
okay.
because of course that's not an option. So before I can figure out who this guy is and why he hates my companion, I have to decide whether or not I should kill him. And I'm like,
But-
wait, I
Huh?
want to go discuss this. And even like the companion even interjected to say like, you know, "You've been making my life a living hell for the past couple years." And in any other game, the dialogue would switch over to the NPC, the companion character. You talk to them for a while, and then switch back to the guy. But no. So I forgave the guy at first, and my companion's like, "Why would you do that?" And then he walks off, and he's like, "So-and-so disapproves of what you've done." And I'm like, "I just wanted to know why. We can kill him right now. I have my flamethrower ready." So I reloaded and went
That sounds
back.
like when I accused my companion of murder, and he was like, "This guy idolizes you now." Was the prompt?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm
No,
like, that's
that-
a weird prompt to get.
The companion relation system is very strange. I actually had to give Durus the boot because he kept judging me for being a nice person to the clerics, just because he hates the clerics, I guess.
Oh yeah, I learned all the way back in Knights of the Old Republic. There are just some companions you don't want to bring with you on some
Yeah,
planets to
they
some
just
situations.
they just don't like you for whatever reason. So what ends up happening is I kill the guy because
disapproves of something again.
yeah. So I end up killing the big bad for this guy's companion line, and then I go and ask the companion, "Hey, why did this guy want to kill you?" And he's like, "Well, I had killed a beast, And then I was harvesting a meat, and then this guy and his friends came over, and they wanted it instead, and they were shooting at me. So I booby-trapped it and ran away, and I guess he survived, so now he hates my guts. And I'm like, that's not the payoff I was expecting. Like, I was expecting... I was expecting, like, some deep, dark secret from his past, you know, betrayal.
A morbid love
like,
affair.
why are all of your friends out to kill you now? Why is this guy out to kill you? And it's like, oh, well, I technically booby-trapped, the stuff he stole from me. And I'm like... That's not the plot payoff I was hoping for. That's barely even like character development for you. And by the way, for the fight against the guy that's been torturing him for the past couple of years, he stood there and it's like, oh, are we fighting now? And then he got glitched on a barrel and stood there. Because companion AI is broke as shit.
I had a fun AI situation actually immediately in that game, like episode 2, which is...
That wouldn't surprise me. It's really bad.
So Duras was escorting me to the first capital city area, and I wandered off to find Acid Axe guy, and he like two-shot me. So next time I came back, and I'm like, I'm gonna lure that guy to Duras, is what I'm gonna do.
Yep.
So I lured him up to Duras, and I'm like, let's fight. And Duras would not aggro on him.
He'd stay there.
Every time, and Duras is programmed to go from point to point along a path, and every time you get close to him, he moves to the next point, and so he's like escorting you, but also waiting for you. And if you aggro an enemy, he does not have like an aggro radius to attack the enemy. He'll just keep walking away from you down the path every time you try to get him to fight the dude. And I'm like, Duras, what are you doing? Aren't you escorting me right now?
Was that in a tutorial?
Yeah.
Where you were running around in circles?
Okay. You guys go. I've got another story with Duras doing that exact sort of thing.
I was just asking, was this during a tutorial section, or was this in the actual game?
More or less. Like, you finish the tiny linear encapsulated area, and then you meet Duras, and he's like, I'll take you to my people.
It's always really funny.
And he's like a fixed path.
It's really funny to play a game in the tutorial where, like, you have an AI companion, and the AI just doesn't react to you doing things because the game expects you to like take care of things on your own. It's like, the game throws this monster at you, like you have to kill this monster.
Are you thinking of Game Grumps right now?
Huh? Yeah, I'm thinking of that specifically. Like, that's the most recent example that comes to mind. But like,
which
they
played
games.
Fire Emblem Warriors, and in like one of the first missions, they just like, I'm not gonna fight him. I'm gonna have my companions fight him, and all those companions were just standing still surrounding a monster, and the monster was also standing still. And they're like, "Get him! Take him down! Quick before it's too late!" And everyone's just standing there, and they're just waiting for the player to beat him up, and like there's just not a fight happening because everyone's standing still. And so Aaron lured the monster towards one of the enemies, towards one of his allies, and made him get hit. And the ally still wasn't responding. He was still standing. He would like fall over and then get back up and still stand there.
Yeah, that's some good shit.
So Shell had brought up, I ran into your situation, but kind of worse. So this is still when I was like level 10. I was still pretty weak. I ran all the way to the cleric's area. There's a teleporter that brings you there, but they never tell you about it. You have to find it randomly, which sucks. So I walked from the southwest corner of the map to the northeast, which took like an hour. It's a big map without those teleporters.
Especially since you have to avoid a lot of enemies.
Yeah, every enemy sub-level 15 will kill you. Even like the most basic creatures can take off like a quarter of your health in a hit. And it's rough. It's like kind of Dark Souls level of stakes, except for like...
so bad though.
The rats? Yeah, the rats are easy, but like... There are raptors that, like, don't even have skulls next to the names, so you're like, yeah, I can fight them and it one-shots you, and you're like,
oh.
Okay. So I run across the map, because at this point, I told you about the bug where Duras one-shots everything now, right?
I don't know. I'm not
I
sure.
bugged him out. I bugged him out to the point where anything he hits dies, no matter what it is. High-end boss, combat mech, giant troll, plot important NPC, anything that he strikes dies.
Plot important NPC.
So at one point I killed a quest giver by accident because Duras aggroed onto them in combat and they shot them. It was really, really... It wasn't important because the game kind of does that thing where it like...
Reloads them?
No, it restructures the plot so like you can get past... Yeah, they're like, this will have impacts on the plot, but like really you could kill everyone and probably still beat the game.
Huh.
But so I'm given a quest to go find a drug dealer that's been operating out of the Hort, which is the cleric's starting area. And I eventually track him down to an outpost outside of town. And he's like, feel free to search my things. You won't find anything. You find like a bag of drugs, like all of his merchandise. And he's like, what? What about it? What are you going to do to me?
Bag with drugs written on it.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like just the most damning evidence he could have had in his locker. And so I'm like, I'm going to have to turn you in. Like, this is absolutely not okay. What did you expect I was going to do? And he's like, well, I'm not going down without a fight. And then he immediately aggroes on me. Now, I was still kind of low level and kind of low gear at this point. Like, I was probably 10 hours into the game at this point. So, like, you'd think I'd be able to hold my own in a fight. But no, this guy was skull level difficulty if you've ever played, like, an MMO.
Yeah,
but
warns
he
you,
would
like, this will kill you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he 3-shot me. And if he pulled out his gun, he would 2-shot me or something like that. Like, it was an unwinnable fight. But I have Duras, the one-shotting champion of justice, who stood there standing next to me and being like, griping about the clerics. And I run past the guy. The guy hits Duras in the face, and Duras is like, I don't really like the clerics. And I'm like, no, pull out your bow and shoot the guy. Like, I'm dying here. And eventually I realized Duras is not programmed to fight NPCs that are optional. Like, he will fight reavers, he will fight bandits, he will fight whatever. But if it's like a character that you can have dialogue with, even if that person is inevitably going to turn on you and attack you if you pick the wrong option, Duras will stand there and watch. And so, me not wanting to give up on this because, like, this is the last thing I need to do before I join the clerics, which will give me nice new armor and guns and all sorts of things. So I proceeded to spend the next 10 minutes running in circles around. I was effectively playing Ring Around the Rosie, shooting the guy with my machine gun. 700 shots, I think, to the face was what took to kill the guy. And Duras just stood there and watched the entire time.
I just remember hearing you, Duras!
Yeah, I was like screaming at him the entire time. I was furious.
Stella!
Yeah.
We both had our repeatedly shouting Duras's name moments. It's just mine happened in the first hour.
Yeah. Well, I've had many circumstances. I had like critters biting me, and I'm like flying above, and Duras is like standing below me with his sword out, looking straight upwards as there's like a raptor right next to him, also doing the same thing. I'm like, come on, dude. Like,
there's a fair number of weird, janky things, like how if you're in a fight against random wildlife that aggroes in town against town people, and you accidentally hit the other person during the fight, then they will be aggroed to you after the creature's dead. Or my personal favorite is if you just don't put your weapon away fast enough, they'll aggro on you.
Oh, dude, if you ever get the
your
chance,
weapon, everyone's be like, "What are you doing there? You put that away." And I'm like, we're fighting, remember?
If you accidentally walk into somebody's bedroom, they will aggro on you and attack you. So, like, at one point I was trying to find a bed so I could fast forward to morning so I could see shit because it was dark. And I walk into somebody's room, I see a bed, I walk over to it, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And then stabbed me to death. And I'm like, "Buh?" Like, there was no preamble.
House,
but it wasn't ever marked. It was just a generic house this entire time. It had never been, like, established that there were private residences in the game. I just figured it was kind of the like generic set piece.
It is funny though to walk into somebody's house and then have them get out of my house. And I'm like,
it is funny.
Fair enough.
But that was the first time I had like
been
in a house, and they just stabbed me. But if you can make it to the bed before they get pissed at you, you can sleep for the rest of the night unmolested, which is great.
It is 100% in many ways exactly as janky and awkward and oddly charming as like Morrowind.
Yeah.
Like, it's that kind of experience playing it. Like, you have so many options and so many things to do and so much to explore, and there's so many weird things to get used to that don't make sense. And it's just part of... And it's one of those things where, like, so many of the things about it would have been, should be a flaw, but I'm just having fun all the time.
So
it's the last thing... I just don't care.
The last thing I want to mention is the flamethrower in the game. So, in normal games, you have the flamethrower and it, like, eats through ammo like nobody's business, right? Well, sure. Every weapon in Elex has 3 settings. So the bow has like homing arrow, regular arrow, and shotgun arrow.
Okay.
It's kind of weird.
How do you shotgun?
But like
an arrow?
whatever. You fire multiple, I guess. I don't know.
Alright.
And guns have burst fire, single shot, and rapid fire, and like there's EMP for the plasma pistol and maybe some other ones. The flamethrower has the non-functional mode, which I have yet to figure out how to get it to work. I've died trying to get it to even do a thing against an enemy, so I just never use it anymore. The generic flamethrower mode, and the rocket launcher mode, where you fire a single shot of flame at an enemy, and it explodes, knocking them on their ass and taking off about an eighth of their health. From, like, any enemy. Doesn't matter what. So, like, at one point I find a combat mech, and I'm like, okay. These things are usually a problem. I'm gonna see if I can flamethrower it. I shoot it in the feet, and it falls over. It gets back up again, I shoot it in the feet again, it falls over. I stunlock the thing to death, and then proceed to kill every single other creature in the area. So, Keith had mentioned Green Axe Guy. Well, I encountered Green Axe Guy with this flamethrower. Him and all of his friends. There were about 10 of them. They all stacked up on a bridge. I shot them in the feet. They all fell over, got back up again, and fell over again because I shot them with the flamethrower. It is magic and terrible. Use the flamethrower. It will change your experience with the game.
I think I'm like level 7 or something.
It doesn't matter. As soon as you can use that thing, everything dies. Like, I run into skull enemies, and I just sit there shooting them with fire until they're dead.
It is a weird system. Like, I think in this game you don't have stats, or like your. People have been saying that your level up screen for your stats like isn't your stats, basically.
Yeah,
like
they don't matter at all.
Prerequisites for skills and weapons and stuff like that, but like your actual stats are essentially invisible, and you don't get to see what they are. Because there's really not like a stat breakdown screen anywhere in the game.
Yeah, the higher your dex is, does not actually affect damage. I think it scales based on your level and like the actual perks that you get, but that's about it. It's weird.
That's what a lot of the skills are. Is a lot of the different skills and perks you get just say increases your thing by something, and it scales with your level is often what they say, and it's like that's all you get to go on. Like there's no stats anywhere, and you can't tell how anything's doing. It's odd. There's a lot of like background questions that might be impossible to answer in game about how the mechanics work.
It's like Binding of Isaac, and how like it has like this crazy complicated math for how your damage is calculated and everything else, but without like a third-party mod, you will never know. You can kind of guess based on like what the attribute screen says you have, but it's complete nonsense and then caps out at a certain point.
Yeah, I've just been having fun exploring, and it hasn't gotten old yet.
Yeah,
I did not.
It got old for me for
the time talking about the same game again.
Yeah,
I think this was the primary topic of the last podcast. I think.
Yeah, kind of. It's like the only other notable game I've been playing recently. Otherwise, it's just been kind of the other stuff.
I mean, we've been playing Horizon Zero Dawn's DLC.
Yeah. But it's just Horizon Zero. Oh, that's actually something. So, Keith, you played Horizon Zero Dawn, but you haven't touched the DLC yet.
No.
Right? Okay. Wait. No, as in like you haven't touched the DLC, but you played the base game.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's pretty much par for the course for regular Horizon Zero Dawn, but the budget went up because Horizon Zero Dawn was kind of made on not a shoestring budget, but it was kind of their last attempt to do something.
It seemed like a morbidly expensive game.
Yeah, they got a lot of funding from it, but if they had failed and like not done well, it would have been the end of their studio. Like Guerrilla Games lived and died by the success of Horizon Zero Dawn, and it worked really well for them. But had they failed with it, they would have shut down probably. And so they were stretched. It was a fantastic product, but compared to what they did for the DLC, it becomes obvious that they were stretched thin. Because everything is better for the DLC. The environments look nicer, the robots are cooler.
Then again, the DLC is sort of like a little mini story expansion
but like
that
they didn't
would have
charge as
occurred
much
before the end of the game.
But like if you compare it to any of the other regions in game, like, you know, just the starting region compared to the DLC, they're almost like different. So like the characters for the base game, they talk, but like the facial animations were kind of weird and awkward, and like for the most part they just kind of like sway back and forth when they talk, and maybe every once in a while they'll gesticulate.
One thing I really like about Horizon Zero Dawn's animations is how they handle eyes, how they have them darting and
What do
like
they do?
flitting.
They actually kind of look like real people. Like they are.
You know how people adjust their focus when they're talking with someone and their eyes just sort of do little shimmies?
Uh-huh.
Very minute ones. They have that, and it's really
in the base
subtle,
game
but
though,
it's
they
nice.
were just random though, so they didn't really, the illusion falls apart if you were looking at it for too long.
What, their
Yeah,
eyes like
it-
just randomly tweak around during cutscenes?
Yeah.
It's like their head nod and their eyes, like all of them they were just random movements that weren't even tied to the line they were saying.
In this DLC though, it's like
It
choreographed.
is.
They
actually took that criticism that people had said, and so like their eyes twitch fairly naturally now, and as opposed to just constantly. And like at one point, one guy walks kind of off camera, and the camera follows him, and he's like throwing his arms up and like swinging them around because he's frustrated. And I'm like, this is kind of unusual because the base game had this, but to a much lesser degree. And so you have Aloy.
So it had a cutout. It was like
Yeah,
they changed a change of scene
yeah.
rather than just flip-flopping between one character perspective and another.
And so the reason why this is kind of important is Aloy doesn't do this. She's not capable of animating this much, and her face looks markedly less good than all of the NPCs you're talking to, because her face is kind of like plastic smooth in comparison and doesn't animate nearly as much. And so it's very weird kind of watching the slightly outdated model talk to the latest model within the same game. And I've never run into that before because I don't think I've ever seen another game kind of have a massive jump up in budget just for DLC.
I still say they're
before.
some of the best people I've ever seen in a game.
Oh, it's fantastic. Like even the base game is wonderful, but it's just remarkable how much of a difference.
They reused like her model or something.
Yeah,
like
because
that?
they can't switch her out.
Right.
Because if they had a new Aloy model the moment you hit the DLC, you're supposed to interchangeably go back and forth. And I think
Gotcha.
that's kind of the problem. If it was like a standalone thing, they could have done a new model or any number of things, but like you can literally just go here right before the end of the end of the main game and do that stuff. And
it actually
so,
sets you back.
yeah, if you're switching back and forth, it would be jarring because her model would change, so they couldn't do it. So she ends up being this kind of weird plastic person in a land of almost real people.
Huh.
And it's fun to watch because you can see them bridging the uncanny valley in a really good way, but you can also see there's very clear, like, obvious steps that they've been taking the entire time.
We also met just one of the most hilarious characters ever.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And
What was his name? Give me a second.
Gildan?
Yeah, Gildan.
You had to check his underwear for that.
He has the same name as the brand of underwear
Well,
that
okay,
I'm
so
wearing.
it's one letter off. It's actually Gildan in the game with a U, but I was looking at it, I'm like, you know what? I know why his name sounds familiar. It's your underwear. And Wander during our stream was like, no, it's not my underwear. He actually like looks down at his underwear and it just says Gildan, but it's with an A-N. I thought that I had like had an epiphany and that it was going to be awesome, and the people in chat loved it. They're like, your underwear is named Gildan. But it's off by one letter, but it sounds exactly the same.
Wow.
Is Aloy still
crotch
played by
bulge
Ashley
on this
Burch?
model is
Yeah.
exaggerated.
That's actually surprising.
What crotch bulge? Where?
Nothing, I wouldn't
What?
worry about it. The conversation's already moved on. If we dwell on this, then it's weird.
I was curious to see if Ashley Burch would be suddenly missing as the title character because there was the voice actor strike. That's why she's not in. That's why she's not in Life is Strange as the title
Oh.
character of that game. And
Wait, there's
I'm
a voice actor strike right now? I heard of
it
one going
ended
on,
in
but
September.
oh,
I wonder
I didn't even hear about it.
if...
It lasted over a year.
Well,
I mean, there's...
whoops, I guess I suck.
Yeah, it was over a year, and it's the reason why Life is Strange's prequel has Chloe back as the main character, but she's not played by Ashley Burch, which is weird. To like bring
That-
back the character as the lead character, and she's played by someone else entirely.
That might almost all be a good idea anyway, because I think Ashley Burch, like, is winning multiple awards, so I can only imagine she's getting more expensive by the game.
Probably.
And for Life is Strange, which is definitively lower budget.
That's super not the reason why she's not in it, though.
Oh, yeah.
And also, Life is Strange is a morbidly successful property.
Yeah, you're right about
The
that.
scale that it's on. And it's published by Square Enix.
Yeah.
Mm.
No,
It's
that's a
no
good point.
small
I
project
don't
on any
know.
level, really.
Here, I wonder if
It's
we can
like a
look it up.
laser-focused project to specifically be successful with that exact demographic.
We found Jennifer Hale in the Horizon Zero Dawn DLC.
Yeah.
Alright.
I wonder if
Ashley Birch was very explicitly not in it because of the strike, which is why I was confused that there was an expansion for Horizon already, and I'm like, that how's that work?
I wonder if Horizon Zero, like the developers are Guerrilla Games, right? I
Yeah.
wonder if they were separated enough out from the Writers Guild strike, or not writers, voice actors strike, that they simply just like weren't boycotted like other studios were.
I mean, yeah, it could easily be that the voice actors had qualms with specific companies that were much larger and known for underpaying their actors, whereas maybe a smaller studio that is more, I don't want to say they're more acquainted. They have a better relationship with the people that they work with.
Because yeah, Ashley Birch was mocapping for the Frozen Wilds back in June, so she
Yeah.
was very distinctively.
Oh yeah, they did.
So
Wait, they
it
are doing
looks-
mocaps.
It looks like it was. I can't find the full list anywhere. The wiki only shows a few of them, which is annoying. But apparently it was 7. I mean, it was 11 developers and publishers, including Activision, EA, Insomniac, Take-Two, and WB.
Yeah,
So I guess maybe it just wasn't Sony.
yeah. It wasn't Sony, and specifically probably wasn't Guerrilla Games.
Oh, also, speaking of like companies and like
It'd be
the
weird if it
potential
was
for
Guerrilla
things
Games.
closing.
Is it not Guerrilla Games? Who are the people that made Horizon Zero
No.
Dawn? I thought it was.
No, I'm just saying it'd be weird if it was Guerrilla Games, because who would be like all prepped for their strike against this company that's only made one game in like 5 years?
Why are
It's all like big names like EA and Activision and WB. There's people that they have like problems with.
Yeah, so I think that's why she got around it. It's because Guerrilla Games is small enough, and I would not be surprised if they aren't more voice actor friendly than EA, for example, by like a significant margin.
Oh yeah, so I've been perusing Twitter the other day, and someone had said that Motiga dissolved
Yes.
or closed down. Didn't they come out with Gigantic more
Yeah.
recently? What else had they worked on?
Motiga existed purely for Gigantic. Have you guys ever heard of Gigantic or Motiga at all, or no?
You used to mention Gigantic way before it ever came out, and then
Yeah.
never
So-
again.
It
more
had
or less.
really nice
It
artwork.
was a game that was doomed from the very inception.
Well, isn't that because it was competing with Overwatch when?
Well, so that's the thing.
Like,
the game
it was a MOBA?
The game was put into closed beta back in 2013 or 14, more or less when we were all really kind of starting YouTube. I guess Keith, you don't really count on that. You started your own channel. I don't know. But it was like it was very much like a startup company made by X whatever devs, probably came from League of Legends or whoever, I don't know.
Mhm.
But so specifically, the main reason why I knew about them was because there was another YouTuber who was starting the same time as us, who worked for them as a QA guy, and so he clued me
Who is
into it
this?
and got me into the beta. Jeez. His channel lived and fell within a couple of months, so I don't even remember anymore.
Of course, you're checking Twitter because you're friends with everyone.
I still follow some people.
Mhm.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think. Yeah, his name was Vince. Vince Vice, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on the Let's Play subreddit for a while, and I was friends with him for whatever reason.
When I Google Vince Vice, I get DJ for electronic music, so I can see that happening of somebody
Yeah.
hopping from Let's Playing to.
Well,
making
apparently
bro
he's
stuff.
he's a
Destiny 2
performance tester at
performance
Bungie now,
tester.
so I guess things worked out for him. But
Yeah.
he was QA for Motiga, and so I was really excited for that game because it actually looked like a MOBA that I was interested in, because there wasn't like gear treadmilling, and it was more kind of like
The most iconic image of it is an owl man.
Yeah, they had a really nice, like, not low poly style, but like it was very, it was like a cartoony 3D that would be nice and like timeless. But the problem was, it was in closed beta for way too long, and you don't really want to do that with a MOBA, where like your player base needs to be large for it to succeed. And they also struck a deal with Microsoft, specifically to only release on the Xbox One and the Windows Store.
Everyone's favorite store.
They were stuck there for 3 years. So they finally went into open beta, I want to say in like 2016, late 2015, somewhere in there. And nobody heard about it. And then I think a couple months ago, it finally hit Steam. And it was actually popular for a little while. But the problem is, Overwatch was already out.
Yeah.
And
so now the studio is gone.
It was dead on arrival, more or less, because they waited too long. They would have been fine probably if they had released totally publicly in like a easy to distribute platform.
Yep.
And gone open beta and let people in.
So why is it that this also reminds me of the situation that we had with Star Trek only being released on CBS's specific network?
Because
thing? They want to incentivize it, but it just seems.
Yeah, it's because they want their subscription service or their storefront to exist by making a game, a popular game or show or series or whatever, be on your service. People have to get that instead, or they have to resort to piracy. So for Game of Thrones, for a lot of people, they have to subscribe to the HBO thing, and it works because Game of Thrones is crazy popular. And so CBS was hoping maybe the latest Star Trek will be amazing and people will jump on it and it'll shotgun our subscription service up high. But in the end, they're really just stealing small amounts of money from people who sub for the month, watch the series, and then leave.
Well, I just think the outrage was that anyone outside of the US could get it on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's just the type of thing where what we care about is an individual property, an individual show or game or whatever the hell, but it's owned by a much larger company, and that company doesn't care about that particular product. They care about their overall margins and what they can push with that thing, which is how you get decisions like the loot boxes, for example, in Battlefront 2. That it was like a huge exploding thing for a while there. Because
I think it's still a little ongoing.
Yeah,
kind of.
Yeah, haven't they used all in-game transactions now?
It's one of those things where like it's gross
until
like,
December.
Like DICE had to apologize for what was clearly like EA's choice and stuff like that, and it's like this is gross. But it's like somebody who owns all the shit just mandates stuff for their bottom line because that's what they care more about than actually having like the game be good or the movie be good. Like, that company doesn't really care about how Star Trek does. They just care about how they can use Star Trek to make themselves better off. So they're like, oh, we can use, this is an IP we can abuse and its loyal fan base of to get people to subscribe to our streaming service.
Well, it's probably dropping because no one's getting it.
Yeah, like I'm looking now and it's like, it hasn't been released yet. It's still pre-ordered, right? But it's like you can pre-order it for like these steep discounts now.
I think it's available on EA Access.
It's been out for 2 days.
Okay, because I know the Xbox One version is already half off for the Black Friday sale.
I know, that's what I'm looking at right now.
Well, that's right. It's Black Friday. That's going to be coming up.
So part of it is they got so many refund requests that they actually shut down their refund page.
What?
No, that was that was an issue with the pre-order thing.
Yeah.
So you can't refund a pre-order through like the online portal. That was never something that was allowed, and people just saw it and ran with it. But it's you always had to. So basically, if you want to return the game, you wait till it goes out and then you can return it. But internet being what it is, people saw it and ran with it. Just like they said.
Joke's on you. You were all people who pre-order EA games.
Yeah.
Just like people were like, oh, the EA stock crashed or whatever. And it's gone down by 4 points.
That's what EA needs is a loyal following. That's the company to give that to.
Yeah.
Pre-ordering EA games. Gross.
Well, weren't people doing it for Mass Effect?
Yeah, I did it for Mass Effect.
I did it
I
for Mass
regret
Effect because
that.
it was my job.
Yeah.
Yep.
And,
Yeah,
and
for-
it literally allowed me to make videos like 5 days early because of EA Access. That's like a different thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
For
because there's
people-
the incentive to like, oh, you can get it before.
Jeez, if you own
release.
stock in EA in 2012, you have a crap ton of money right now.
That would be what you're looking up right now.
Sorry.
Stocks.
Well, I mean, it's Bird.
That's
He is
foreign
a
to me.
captain of industry now or something. But the Battlefront thing is such a sad. I loved Battlefront, the original Battlefront
old
2 as a
ones,
kid.
yeah.
I played the shit out of it. I actively
great.
organized LAN parties.
I remember you didn't
just
get.
so I'd have people to play with because nobody
Battlefront
else
2
played
is still
it.
on Steam and people still play it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
could-
I
Everyone
remember
who's
they-
mad about this can just go play the good one that's still there.
They are.
So
I remember-
yeah, I'm like, why? It's like it's so much cheaper too,
Yeah.
and better. So just do that.
I remember that you used to unlock the like for every world there was always an Imperial and Rebel or Republic versus
Yeah.
the CIS fight, and you would get a couple different like ground troop varieties or droids depending on what you were, and then there'd be one primary character like Vader or Luke and stuff, and they would be the one that you could eventually build up to during the course of your battle. This, though, what do they mean by purchasing that?
Yeah, so I actually don't know enough about Battlefront 2 to really talk about it. The moment I
neither.
heard that there was going
I
to
played
be
Battlefront 2, though. That's what it was from. You mean
So-
Battlefront 3. This is the third one.
No, this is
The-
Battlefront 2,
this is
the
the
sequel
fourth.
to Battlefront the reboot.
Yeah, so this
Oh.
is actually the fourth Battlefront game.
This is the fourth? Okay.
Yeah, because there
Never
was
mind.
Battlefront 1 and 2 back in the 2000s.
And then there's
Uh,
Battlefront 1 and 2 back in the now.
Yeah.
And they did
Oh.
not change the names even a little bit.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Actually,
'cause
yes,
I,
they
I
did.
played the old
Actually,
ones.
they did. The old ones had a colon in their name. And even that's not entirely true because none of them have colons in their logos. Just for some reason, all of the old ones are officially listed with colons and the new ones aren't.
What? That's just
Awful.
You can tell
Yeah,
them
I
apart
played the old
because
ones,
the
though.
old one has the old Star Wars logo and the new one has the new Star Wars logo, which is almost identical because it's the same font. But all the new Disney movies are a weird thing where they have Star Wars and then a giant border and it's all small text and then a giant actual title in the middle of it,
Man,
like Rogue One.
I... never mind.
The Star Wars.
I was
Would you like more
gonna
Star Wars with your
say-
Star Wars with the infinite Star Wars loop.
I was gonna say I was gonna say, man, I don't care. But then I realized that would sound a little bit too sarcastic.
I don't care. Welcome to Wave 3. Welcome to Phase 3 of the Star Wars merchandising push. It
Star
happened in
Wars.
the
Oh
70s,
Yeah.
God!
and
still?
then the thousands, and now it's happening in the 2010s
Mhm.
again. Would you like another Star Wars sword with more sword? This one shoots more lasers too.
Does it make noises? With,
Would
like,
you
the
like to see
little
the
Hey.
17th
accelerometer in it?
restructuring of the fucking Stormtrooper helm? Wow,
Uh-huh.
this one's slightly more angular. Isn't this interesting merchandise?
I'm just
we have the
waiting
Master
buying it
Replica
again.
lightsabers for Mace Windu and Darth Maul.
I'm just waiting
and
for
they're the
somebody
better
to have the
ones.
double-bladed
Not Hasbro.
Kylo Ren cross-hilt lightsaber for extra fuckery. No, for
KOTOR
Battlefront,
killed my interest in Star Wars.
Yeah,
Because KOTOR's good.
yeah.
And Star Wars
love
has never,
KOTOR.
no Star Wars movie has ever been as interesting or ever will be as interesting as KOTOR.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
It really makes me wonder. There are rumors of another like spin-off trilogy
Don't-
that's going to be
Don't
going
give
on.
a shit.
You don't
It's
think-
going to be an
they said
EA
it's
game,
gonna
and
be-
therefore it's not
They
worth my
said it's
time.
going to be in a new time period that
Don't-
was never experienced before.
Are we
so I'm like,
talking
are they doing
games or movies? 'Cause-
movies?
Okay.
Movies are,
I still
and
have
a
a hard
television
time caring.
show. Is it going to be the Old Republic? Is it going to be when the Republic was like still alive and kicking? Is it going to be in the future?
I'm just
They
wondering how
probably
long
shouldn't
they
do
can
the
maintain
future.
this trend of the franchise being exactly 50% prequels, while also every prequel being always bad, every
Yeah.
single time. Because they've insisted on it for some reason. Like all the way down to like the original series had a spin-off movie in the form of the Christmas special,
Oh,
and and then the spin-off movie for the prequels was Clone Wars. So so like the original trilogy, the first trilogy and second trilogy both had a weird bastard stepchild spin-off. So it's still 4 and 4 at that point.
The Clone Wars movie was to introduce you to the television series,
but it's still another movie for. I'm saying that both trilogies had a weird bastard stepchild fourth movie that is like forgotten by time, but is actually there.
You forgot about the Droids movies with the Ewoks.
Those were OVAs.
Those don't count.
Who cares?
But like now they're like, we made episode 7. Here's a prequel. We made episode 8. Here's Han Solo's prequel. Like, why are you doing this? Why is it always 50% prequels? What is that an agreement that George Lucas made with them? Is that like if you use my franchise, every other movie has to be a prequel forever? Because like they've stuck with it. I don't know why.
I think it's just because they want to get to the point where, you know how with some series, well, I mean, actually it's true with Star Wars.
It's
even
called
is it every
Solo,
year or every
a
2
Star
years?
Wars story.
It
That's
is
so
and
Star Wars story.
It has gone through 3 directors now, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh.
It started with 2, and they finished filming.
Well, the final
Those
Star
guys
Wars
quit
film
right
of the new
before they were
trilogy.
done filming,
Yeah.
and then they finished filming, and then brought on the last director to put the whole movie together, which
Oh,
is
sounds
no,
exactly
they
like
Suicide
Cluster-
Squadded it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That sounds like exactly like the clusterfuck that happens to every DC movie lately. Is that
Yeah.
it goes to like 17 different people and it's nobody's creative vision, and some corporation finally shits it out because it has to get done, and then you just deal with what came out, and it's like a disaster. Boy. Star Wars, everybody, aren't you excited? Decade 3.
now
It'll be continuing long after you died, and Disney will never
know
lose
what
it
makes
because they
me-
changed how copyright works.
Star Wars makes me think of The Simpsons. Like,
I think they're
yeah,
just
they're
a
getting the
franchise
rights.
that spun out way beyond its
Well-
shelf life.
there was a romance to the original 3 movies, because there was a beginning beforehand and an afterward that like was kind of implied, but there was a nice finality to the 3 movies. And now that Disney's picked it up and is bringing the universe back again, some part of me is kind of happy, because it's like, okay, cool. Star Wars is a decent universe, and I'd rather see more stuff in like Star Wars than some other.
I just don't like how this new trilogy is a rehash of the old
Yeah,
one.
it feels weirdly derivative, and it's lost that finality that it had prior. Because like
we already
even with
have
the
a
prequels-
second. We already have a second movie where the main character goes off and leaves all their friends to go to a weird planet to learn from a hermit how to use the Force.
Yep,
I'm like, God
yep.
damn it!
Yeah.
I can't wait for the assault on a snow planet. I wonder if this movie will end with a scene where somebody's loved one is being carried away prisoner, and they might never be back ever again in some kind of like bounty hunter ship, as they shoot at them ineffectually, not being able to stop the ship, but they try anyway, and then the movie ends.
To be
do we
fair,
wanna
that
take
was a really good ending.
Do we want to?
It was a good ending, and they're going to do it again. We're gonna get
So-
everything all the way down to like, because this is going to be the equivalent of the Star Trek trilogy, where they're yelling Khan, and I'm like, what are you doing? Stop! No. Oh.
I almost thought that in
no.
this next movie they were going to do the whole, you know, maybe Rey gets like potentially.
That the trailer
seduced the
leads
dark
you to
side.
believe that, but they're completely different.
I know it's
The
because
trailers
they
are-
have.
In the
they're
trailer,
dumb.
that's clearly 2 different scenes spliced
No, no,
together.
no, no,
first
no.
of all,
It's
but
not
Rogue
that
One's
part.
but Rogue One's entire trailer was not in the movie ever. No scenes from Rogue One were in the trailer. Were in the movie.
I should go watch that trailer because
yeah,
I hadn't seen Rogue One's trailers.
Remember that? Yeah, there's an icon. The most memorable scene of that movie, of that trailer, is the main character, who I've already forgotten the name of because I've also forgotten her character and everything
Urso?
about that movie. So shit. But it's her in a light up hallway that looks like those like long shop lights, those like long beam lights.
Oh yeah,
and
it was
everything.
that Imperial
And they're
thing.
lighting
Yeah.
the entire hallway, and it's a circular hallway, and she looks at the camera, and it's like all lighting up, and like it's the most memorable image from the trailer. And just like every other thing else in the trailer, none of it shows up in the movie ever.
Yeah, no, I wasn't referring to the whole like Kylo Ren reaching out with his hand and it looks like Rey was speaking with him. No, it's not that. It was the whole Snoke torturing Rey, like actually physically in the same room as her.
Nah.
Like, unless she's
We'll
able
see.
to break out.
I don't want to speculate it on apart from who do we think's going to get carbonated?
Yeah, who gets
I'm-
the carbonate this time?
Is it going to be is
It's
his
just how the
name
movie
Finn?
ends. Han
Or is it
Solo
going
gets
to be the-
carbonated
Finn,
again.
Finn nearly got killed in the last movie.
Oh
He's
my
gonna
god,
be
it's
having
gonna be
his...
the pilot, and Finn's gonna be like, "No, my lover."
Hmm.
How about
That's
that
the
like
twist. Is
critter?
those
You mean
two are
Poe
together
Dameron?
now. It
Poe
goes past.
Dameron
It
is
goes
the
past a
pilot.
bromance.
Oh, I have a good suggestion. C-3PO gets carbonated.
Quite frankly,
my word,
suppose-
I need to be in carbonated.
I actually forgot they were in the movie. The droids were in the movie.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. R2-D2's back. R2-D2's amazing. C-3PO, supposedly everyone that's ever worked with Daniels, who's the actor that portrays him, says that he's the most difficult member of the crew, and he and Baker, who plays R2-D2, have never gotten along ever.
Baker wants to, but the guy that does C-3PO is apparently an asshole.
Anthony
It's
Daniels.
gonna be like hard
I've
to
never
watch
read
Return
anything
of the
about him.
Jedi again and see like the happy ending, and then realize that all those people are probably gonna be dead in the next 3 movies.
Anthony
Yeah.
Daniels is an English
It's
actor.
like they're
and
just gonna
mime
kill
artist.
all 3 of them,
Oh.
right? They've already,
They've
There we
gotta.
go.
I mean,
they're
they
just
pretty
gonna
much
kill. They're just gonna kill off Luke and Leia. They can't just go off and live happily ever after off camera somewhere. They've got to die.
like
Which really,
I could
that's
maybe
goodwill for the new trilogy.
I could maybe see Luke living past the 3rd movie because he's younger than everybody else. Also not dead or dying. Like, you have to pretty much get rid of Han Solo from every franchise you want to have survive him.
Harrison Ford
Because
wanted
that guy
Han
is
Solo to die
suicidal.
back in episode 5
Yeah. Because, like,
Yeah.
or 6.
Harrison Ford has crashed his plane how many times now? Like, if you want
well, you don't have
any
to.
Harrison Ford character to exist in your extended universe, you have to, like, finish that off quick.
There is
before
a
he-
weird sense that like we're trying to finish off every Harrison Ford property all at once, all of a sudden.
Yeah, before he gets
You
too
mean
old.
Blade Runner?
Yeah. 'Cause
Except
Blade
then
Runner,
they killed the young kid.
Indiana Jones, we've got that
Gosling.
coming
Let's
up.
not just randomly shout out the endings of movies.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Maybe he isn't gone.
Wasn't there
Whoops.
another one? Because there's Blade Runner and there's Star Wars, didn't?
Well, there's
didn't they-
Indiana Jones coming up.
Yeah.
Another one?
Yeah, there.
So I suppose they don't like Shia LaBeouf.
No,
You don't have
Shia-
to
well-
kill Han Solo though. You could just not have Han Solo forever. Like
Yeah,
he could just be done. He was
you
just
could
a
just give
dude
him
with
the
a
Revan.
ship.
You could just give him the Revan treatment and say like, I disappeared
went
into the
to
far
the
reaches and
outer
nobody
rim.
knows where he went.
Han Solo's not
Turns
even
out-
important enough
Or
for
he
the
could've
Revan
just
treatment.
retired.
He's just Han Solo. He's just a dude that flew a ship for a while. He could just stop being in the story after the trilogy's over and never mentioned again, and it would work.
Yeah.
It would be fine.
But I was going to mention this when we were talking about EA handling Star Wars products, because like that's the other reason why I have trouble caring about Star Wars is I know any franchise video games go through EA now, and that means inherently they're probably going to be terrible. I was thinking there's a dark timeline somewhere along the way where Obsidian got the Star Wars contract instead. And I'm suddenly very sad whenever I think about that.
Wasn't that KOTOR 2?
Yeah, they're the people that made KOTOR 2 and Fallout New Vegas and stuff like that. The people that always make the follow-up product to a really popular game that's technically better than the first if it had had the budget and time to actually be its own product as
Yeah,
opposed
because
to rushed
KOTOR
out
2
to
was a lot
capitalize.
shorter than
Yeah.
KOTOR.
And New Vegas is better but buggy as shit and only partially finished.
Both of them have like expansive community mods that try to fix them entirely.
Yeah, and like generally are just referred to as the better. Well, I don't know. I don't know about KOTOR 1 and 2 because they're so similar, but like
It's
Oh,
a very
ha-
different
How
story.
Long to Beat at the very least has KOTOR 2 being listed as equal or longer.
Really?
yeah,
It was always the shorter game.
it
for
had
me.
more side content, if I remember right, because I blew through the plot of KOTOR 2 in about 10 hours and it took me 20 for KOTOR 1 or something like that.
Did you?
I played both of them in 2 weekends back to back, and I
Huh.
couldn't manage to do so with KOTOR 1, but I beat KOTOR 2 like easily.
I think the thing was, Knights of the Old Republic 1.
The median
Terrace
speed run
itself
for
was
KOTOR 1 is
hours.
10 hours.
Wanda
That was
plays a
going
lot
fast.
of video
They
games.
say they've pulled 100 and 200 people for these games, and they say that the main story average duration, like just main story, no bonus content, is 30 hours for either game.
Okay, so I mean, maybe it took a lot longer.
You might be
I
than
didn't
underestimating
play-
just
I-
how much of that weekend you spent
probably-
playing it.
I probably
Like
am.
a
I just
nightmarish
remember.
amount in a fever dream. 'Cause
I
had
didn't
that
play any
experience.
Kazakh.
I beat Jade
That-
Empire in a weekend, and I had that experience of playing way too much RPG in one weekend.
That was middle school for me, and so middle school for me is a blur of video games and moving from house to house. I lived in 6 houses from 6th grade to 8th grade, 9th grade.
What?
That's exhausting.
Yeah, because we moved out of California to North Carolina, but we were at separate places there too because it was going from like apartments to rentals and stuff. Because the people wouldn't like vacate the house enough, and then my dad would get a new job, and
then you have to move to a new
so like
town.
I had very few friends and a whole lot of video games. And the friends that I made as soon as I hit Massachusetts taught me how to pirate games. So I pirated the shit out of the KOTOR games. Well, I didn't even pirate them. More or less, so I had 2 Russian friends. They were always together, and like everybody
the
was
notorious
like...
Russian friends that come up from time to time.
Yeah, so that's the thing. They were... It was like
Did they even have names,
race.
or were they just the Russians?
Nikolai and Yuri.
No.
Oh, you're just making shit up.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Those are characters from games.
I know.
Were their parents named Vlad and Vladder?
They were.
He's from Grand Theft Auto.
Wander was born in Grand Theft Auto.
Apparently,
born in Liberty City.
But so Nikolai was the one that was obsessed with guns and military tech, and the other one was obsessed with piracy, and and
what does
like
obsessed
darknet
with
shit.
piracy mean?
It was great.
I just download
no,
stuff all day forever. I don't even watch it.
no, that's the thing. I met him. We talked about video games. He opens up his backpack, pulls out a jewel case with KOTOR 1 and 2 burned on a DVD, and he's like, "Here you go. We're friends now. Tell me when you're done, and I'll get you more." And
it feels like one of those annoying edgelord friends that has to slip the darknet into every conversation.
He never did. He never did. I think he realized that he was getting a bad rep for it, but if you asked him about it, he would never shut up about it.
I had a friend growing up who pirated Total Annihilation, and I really wanted to play Total Annihilation because I loved RTSs when I was a little kid. And I was like, can you give me a copy of Total Annihilation? And he was like, sure, $60. It was like,
wait, that's extra illegal.
But that's
buy
very, very.
That's even more illegal.
But here's the thing. I didn't know how much Total Annihilation cost. So I saved up money to eventually try and buy a pirated copy of it from a friend.
What?
And at the end of it, I had raised, I think, 65 cents. Yeah, about 65 cents. And
Total Annihilation came out when we were in elementary school, so...
Yeah, he was manipulating a second grader, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, the second grade.
Yeah, for me, I was in high school, so, like, the moment... So there were a couple other guys in this group, and one guy actually got busted for selling bootleg DVDs of movies and stuff.
1997. Yeah, I guess I would have been, like... second grade, third grade, something like that.
Yeah, you'd probably be 9.
Yeah.
I played Old Republic half my life ago. God,
yeah, I know.
Dang.
It's scary.
I played it when I was 13 and I'm 27.
Yep.
Fuck.
It's okay. Just remember that you're not getting younger and that time is relentlessly marching forward and you're going to die soon.
Wait, Keith is older than me? I always thought he was younger than me.
No, Keith is a couple months older than me, and then Bird's a couple months older than him.
Oh. Oh, I always knew Bird was oldest.
I never beat Old Republic. I couldn't.
You never did?
No.
Really?
It broke.
Too hard?
No, it broke.
Oh,
it broke forever.
I never beat Old Republic 2.
It came out in a period where I didn't know that... I didn't even know it had a PC version, period. I just thought it was an Xbox game because I was 13. I just didn't have that wide exposure. So I played on Xbox, and without spoiling anything, because I don't want to spoil this game for anybody, I got past the climactic plot reveal moment of the game. And then there's a space shooting segment where you shoot stuff in space, because that happens periodically. Those like arcade shooter segments.
I know the bug you're talking about.
Then it cuts back to my ship for Karth to talk to me. And after one line of dialogue, they just do an infinite idle animation forever, and the next line of dialogue never comes, and you can't skip it, and you can't do anything. It just stays there forever. And the save was so big for that game, you couldn't even put it... So I returned the game, and got a different copy of the same game from GameStop, and it still didn't work, so it wasn't the disc. And I came to the conclusion it must be my Xbox, so then I was like, I have a friend's Xbox, I could try to finish on their Xbox, but the save games for that game were bigger than the Xbox memory card.
Yep.
So I never got to test that solution.
So that is actually a famous
PC
bug
games.
that I've heard about, because I was watching my friend do the same thing. He was the one that introduced me to KOTOR originally, and I thought it was an Xbox game. I didn't know it was a PC game. So it colored me surprised when somebody else handed me a pirated disc a year later in a different state. But so I was watching him play it, and we get there, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you get to watch me beat KOTOR. It's this great game." And I'm sitting there, and so I get the big spoiler as the first like 5 minutes of what I experience.
That sucks when that happens.
And then we get to
my first exposure to Game of Thrones was Andrew randomly shouting about the ending of the first season. I'm like, what? What? Thanks.
But so we get exactly through the ship's shooting segment. I think he may have gotten like a line or two further than you, and then yeah, just permanent standing there. And I'm like, well, this is really cool. And he's like, no, this isn't supposed to happen. I'm like, this isn't really cool. And then we went off to go watch Schwarzenegger movies.
I find it so hilarious that you guys like how Game of Thrones has become so big now, because the first time I ever heard of it was back in high school, maybe 10th grade, and my one friend's boyfriend
the difference is it became an HBO show.
Yeah.
Right. He was reading the books, and so she had brought a book in, and I'm like, oh, hey, can I see it? And usually when I discern whether or not I like a book, I read the back, I read the first couple pages or chapter, and I flip to a spot in the middle. I have the uncanny ability to flip to the middle of a book and find the one sex scene.
I think we've
really
established
There's
that
a
you've
lot
got
more than one sex scene in those books.
I know, which is probably why it was a high probability. But I like happened to flip it open on the part where she was, suckling the baby dragons and in great detail, and I'm like, oh.
That's not even a sex scene.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it was just
nursing.
weird. Well, you thought that the lion nursing in that weird game was off.
That was weird.
What game was this? I don't remember.
That was
this.
weird.
Lioness-y.
All right, well, let's talk about Extra Life.
Yeah.
Because Extra Life happened, and we all did extra. Well, yeah, we all did Extra Life streams.
Bird
or
participated
something.
for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yep.
For my Extra Life stream, it was Andrew and I sat down on a couch and played a bunch of indie games from my inbox for 12 hours. And one of them was called Lioness-y Story. And I was so baffled by what we were going through. Because it was a lion visual novel, like a Lion King, but like really like Lion King. But
Dude,
weird,
this game
like,
looks awful.
It's like some kind. It feels like someone's. The whole game just felt like someone's fetish. And like
This
not in the
art
way.
is so bad.
Yeah, I
It's like-
noticed half
it's
the
like in a
visual
way where,
novels
like-
on Steam are like that.
It's not even just that they're animals, because if it was like Lion King, I wouldn't question it for a moment. If you were just like, oh, and I'm gonna you'll roll this day, one day, and like those kinds of storylines. But like it was like we're gonna spend time talking about breastfeeding and stuff like that, and I'm like, what is happening?
Weren't the little
Like-
lions going, milk, milk?
Yeah, like yay, milk. And also it was terribly written and terribly translated, and the art's horrifying. And it was just so fixated on like it wasn't actually pornographic, but it was so weirdly fixated on uncomfortable things. And I'm like, why are you writing about this so much? And I had to make the point of like this is it has the feature to fast forward to branching points in the story, so that means that like it's the visual novel with different branches. So and they put the milk at the beginning, so it's like that's the part that like. If you're playing the game over and over again to get every story branch, that's the one they want you to experience over and over again, is that the scene where the breastfeeding for some reason. I'm just like, this is... No, Steam.
It's
no.
nature. It's natural, Keith.
It's
I mean,
it's
I
so
suppose
weirdly
most-
You need to stop being
uncomfortable.
such damn Puritan and just accept the beauty of
Puritan.
nature.
If you want to make your fucking Neko Jishis, go for it. That game is respectable. That is a
Neko G
beautiful
what?
Tiger Man.
Hey.
Oh.
If you look in Discord, I pasted the screenshot. And
Yeah.
I've seen what the game looks like.
boy, the lion's facial expression is just fantastic.
Yep. Lioness-y Story is nightmare. It's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
I was not
We should-
okay with it.
We should, I know we've said this before, but I really want to, like, play a visual novel at some point with a bunch of people, like, voicing the various characters.
Yeah.
Like, Hatoful Boyfriend. I just want to play Hatoful Boyfriend.
Especially
completely
because
through
we
so
got
can get
one of the
bonus
weird
ending.
endings.
Yeah, we
I want to get
romanced
the
it.
good
It's always a
bunch.
possibility. We just have to wait until moments where we actually have the free time.
I
we're
was
always
gonna
busy
say,
with, like,
if
We're not busy individuals. What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, I just want us to have like
Funny
one
joke.
ongoing I want our collective group to have one ongoing project at any given time and nothing else.
Yeah.
Because
Divinity's never gonna end.
Once we're done
it'll
with
end when
Divinity,
it's over.
when we're done with Divinity, I'm going to put a hard cap on multiplayer group series of like 10 episodes. If the game's gonna go longer than that, it better be a damn good game. Because I want to play other
episodes is
games with you guys
nothing.
right now.
There's like
I
no
know.
games that are that
I
short.
think you need to have maybe what, a 20-hour cap or something. Like
That's
that's typical for a
still
game.
rather long. I don't know. I like Tower 57 came out recently, and I'm like, this would be a great game, but I don't want to play it alone. I'm like, maybe I'll get Keith or Bird to play with me, and Keith's like, I don't like top-down shooters, and Bird just didn't respond, and I'm like, well,
Oh,
wait,
what? I was asked to do something and I said no.
I mean, of all the projects we could spend time on, a top-down shooter is like so low on
it's
my
a really
priority
good
list.
one. It's like Contra. Contra was like top
By
down.
top down,
Yeah.
do you mean a 2D area and you just pivot your character back and forth?
No,
and you like
here,
are seeing
I'll
it from
pull up
above?
Tower.
It's the ones where
Tower
you move with
57.
one stick and you shoot with the other stick. Those types of
Yeah.
games.
Oh, twin sticks.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, twin stick. So it looks like this.
Okay, so it's still isometric.
Yeah, so it's
Ish.
isometric. You play as Abraham Lincoln, some cop, some mafia person,
Oh.
a homeless person, or whatever. You have a gun, and there's like a high-tech, steampunkish tower
Is this
thing.
the one that
that's
you were
like,
starting the other day?
yeah,
Because I remember seeing
it was,
the
and like
Abe
a monster
Lincoln.
rips off your lower half, and you're like, well, I
Ew.
guess I'm missing my legs. Time to go
That
climb
is
into
a-
that mysterious machine and regrow them. It's
That's
like,
a
what?
firm front page of negative reviews.
This game looks
Really?
Yeah.
pretty stupid.
Whoa.
I was
Nothing,
playing it, and I
nothing
rather
about it
enjoyed
looks
it.
appealing to me, honestly.
Like this game
I don't know.
visually
None of
looks
the things I like.
kind of super ugly.
Well, you
very
know their
busy.
answers now, Wanda.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I will move on. There's a billion new games coming out every week.
Yes, there is. Oh
it-
God.
Yeah, there's too much garbage though. That's the one problem. Like, I'm actually kind of starved for new good games.
January
I
is
cleared
going
out
to be
my
the
entire
GRPG.
inbox. I cleared out my entire inbox, and for Second Life, and my inbox is already up to 60 things again. I'm like, God damn it!
I
It's too
I
many
have-
games.
I have raised my standards a little bit. But like I know the Battle Chef Brigade is coming out in a couple of days. Oh, tomorrow. Ugh.
Battle Chef?
I think it.
The
Yeah,
one
it's
where
Battle
you
Chef
go out and
Brigade.
hunt monsters so that you can win a cooking show.
But wait. It's so anime.
It's so cool.
It's
Wait,
so
wait.
anime.
Wait, is that a kind of like Candy Crush puzzle that they're doing with the cooking?
Let me go back and take a look at it.
I've never played Candy Crush, but I know that it just looks like Tetris
Maybe?
with elements.
It does
You
look like
probably
it's
won't
got a
like-
match 3 effect to it.
There's a really interesting sequel to Candy Crush actually that Shell would probably like. It's called Crush Crush.
I
Crush
thought you were gonna
Crush.
say Bejeweled.
No, I
No.
was gonna say Banner Saga.
Oh, because the lawsuit.
Yeah, because the lawsuit.
Oh,
Wait, what
that's
was
funny.
Banner Saga
Lawsuit
doing?
jokes.
So the
Whenever
Candy
we talk
Crush,
about a lawsuit, I get Google Google results that are just people looking up that lawsuit, and they find our podcast that way. And they're like, when do they talk about the lawsuit? And I'm like, okay. Huh.
Eh.
Like that happened
so,
for gentlemen.
yeah,
Gentlemen.
the Candy Crush people named their game Candy Crush Saga. Kingwin or King or
King
whatever.
Games, something like
Yeah,
that.
King Games.
But
So they're
because it
like,
had Saga
we're
in
the
it?
only people that can have Saga in our name, and the like Banner Saga precedes their game by like a while, and also like Saga is just straight up a normal word.
Yeah, it's ancient.
And
It's the
it
dumbest
doesn't look
thing.
like they won. I never heard if it actually like went to court, but there were lawyers, and it was all over the news for like a couple months, and it's like, what the hell? Like, this makes no
We're-
sense.
yeah.
You are not in competition.
We're going after
Ah.
this game for having Saga in their name, even though, like, I'm sure countless names have had Saga in their name.
This
'cause it's
reminds me of
just a
Scrolls.
word.
Yeah,
Scrolls.
Scrolls
So the
or
game that never
Pray.
came out.
Pray for the Gods? No, Scrolls came out. I own it. It came out and then it died because
Oh,
nobody was
it actually
interested in
came
it.
out?
One was better.
Yeah, it already
Yeah.
had a whole life cycle and died.
Oh,
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore. You can't play it now. You missed it.
I mean, thinking of going back to like the Star Wars and
Okay.
Star Trek, I suppose people couldn't really do anything about having like a star prefix and a war suffix, like in separate different, like, because you have Beast
two
Wars
words, at least.
and you have Star.
Yeah, with Banner
Stuff.
Saga,
Like, I don't know.
it's like Candy Crush. Nobody is gonna look at Banner Saga and Candy Crush Saga and be like,
They're the same. Yeah,
I
nah.
bought the wrong one. Like, that's not gonna happen.
They're not even available on any of the same platforms.
What I
Whereas,
should
like,
do
if some
is I should make a game called War Star. Just see,
no,
see what I can, or Craft.
Craft. There's a lot of games called Craft.
yeah, I think I've heard of a game called Craft, which is like Minecraft crossed
There
with
are
StarCraft.
so many.
which is
I mean,
really
you have
confusing.
Minecraft, for goodness sake.
Actually,
So,
that is
yeah.
another lawsuit that should happen.
No.
I feel like
Shouldn't
Blizzard
happen.
Blizzard
should
should go
happen.
after
I
everyone
see.
that has
Stupid.
craft.
should.
Way too
Um,
stupid.
And then suddenly Kraft, as in Kraft
It- it would-
Cheese
it would be
Company,
funny.
comes in and they're like, we were the first Kraft.
It would be funny if
because of-
Minecraft like survived the wave, but then all of the Minecraft clones get finally wiped out.
That
And it's-
almost would be
And all that's
nice.
left is StarCraft, Warcraft, and Minecraft.
Huh.
Yeah, every time I play a Bethesda game now, I have to mention the Prey versus Prey for the Gods.
Oh god, that one's stupid.
'Cause-
Bethesda's
It-
not your friend.
yeah, so every time I play a Bethesda game now, because apparently they've kind of hit their renaissance of quality, with all their like third-party studios. But every time I play a Bethesda game now, like in the first episode, I'm like, by the way, Bethesda sucks. Here's why. Now let's go back to playing this game. I did it for Dishonored, even though I only got like 4 episodes in before like not putting it on YouTube because I had other things to play. I did it for New Vegas, which is like precedes it. Obviously for Prey, I talked about it a lot. I'm just like, I hate Bethesda. They should go away. Arcane Studio is cool though, and go from there.
On the topic
What?
of scrolls, it's becoming like a really big bummer just dealing with like games that have where like the game you can just miss a game now.
Yeah,
It just goes
actually,
away, and you never.
so-
if you didn't get to it in time, it'll be gone forever.
on
Wait,
the
what games?
topic of so Scrolls was a early access, like still in beta, online trading card game that was actually
Ah.
fairly neat compared to like Hearthstone. Like it had some unique mechanics, but it was very, very slow and not very well publicized, so the player base dropped really quick and stuff like that. And it never actually hit a 1.0. When Mojang got sold off to Microsoft pretty much just said, no, we don't want this, bye. And that was the end of it. And that kind of sucks, because here's this cool game that barely gets to see the light of day before it gets axed. Like, you know, some canceled games, it's like, okay, fine. It just didn't make it out. Like the heretofore unknown infinite number of Star Wars games and series that have kind of been in production but never succeeded. At least you didn't even get to see them before. Whereas, like,
Yep.
Scrolls was a thing. It had a fan base. It was active, and now it's gone, and nobody will ever be able to play it again. Unless somebody, like, rigs up some kind of emulator to make it think it's a single-player game. Or you can play it over, like, a network then. On that topic, Disney axed Marvel Heroes. I assume none of you guys have ever touched that, but do you know about it?
Oh,
No.
it's that like
No,
MMO
never heard
thing
of it.
where
It's-
people played on their phones?
Nope.
Nope.
Marvel Heroes is the isometric, like hack and slash game using pretty much the entire Marvel franchise.
Mhm.
Played like Diablo and was like a MMO.
I remember when that came out.
And that's been out on PC for years now, longer than I think my channel existed. But it recently came to consoles back in, I want to say, June. So it finally made consoles, and everybody was super excited, and they've been hyping up a big patch. And then earlier this week, I want to say like Wednesday, Disney's like, by the way, this game's shutting down.
Huh.
Just straight up. And so it's
What
been
happened
on
to the
consoles
studio?
for...
Did they dissolve the
I-
studio, or what happened?
I assume the studio is probably folding because they were too invested in the game and they don't have enough capital to probably move on to something else. Because this is one of those like studios that only makes one game. It's like if
Was this a free-to-play game? What happens to all the
Like,
money that people put into
Runic
it?
games.
yeah, so that's it. It's a
Oh.
free-to-play game. You don't have to buy into it, but you
People-
have like a limited subset of characters that you can play. So maybe you can play as like Wolverine, Colossus, and Storm. But if you want
Okay.
any of the other Marvel characters, you either have to unlock them or buy them League of Legends style. And
Wow.
it was kind of grind-festy, and, you know, it had its own problems. But
Are they going to give
you
people
had
their
to
money
sing.
back? Like, what if you
They're
bought
not.
something, like,
They're
the
not
day
in the
before they
terms of-
announced they were going to close it?
You can't get it back. That's one of the horror points of these like online games now, is they can take it away from you. Steam could go
Damn.
down, and we would lose our entire game libraries
Yep, and
because Valve decides it's not worth it
to
anymore.
which everyone will respond to you being like, well, the boss man leader dude said they'll magically unlock all the games, which is definitely gonna work. And then you
It's
can
in the
keep them,
terms of service
supposedly.
that they can take it away
Yeah.
from you at any time. Therefore, you have no right to the product anymore.
Let's just invest
And-
all of our trust in these mega corporations that would
Yeah.
totally have our interest at heart.
And the problem is, since they're one of the like major sources for digital, you know,
Yeah.
formats of the game, you can't.
There's a lot of
If
games that
they're
only
bankrupt
exist
or
on
don't
Steam.
want to, then
Yeah.
they would just
If-
they wouldn't send everyone tangible discs and be like, here you go.
If Valve
No.
ever
Or
goes
USBs?
under, my
No.
game library is going to dwindle to very, very small amounts,
Mhm.
and it's
You
going to be
have-
quite sad.
Over 1,000.
Yeah, how many games do I have now?
Games.
I've got 1,489, and that's not including the many, many unredeemed keys that I have sitting around in my email.
We're unusually
inbox.
close. I'm at 1483.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
bizarrely close.
It's a lot of games.
Like it's
God
affecting
damn.
Nintendo now because now Nintendo's all modernizing and getting online features and stuff. But then you have problems when their online features get like disabled.
axed. Yeah, they had they shut down the Miiverse. I believe it
it's
was.
just gone now. Found
Yeah.
out just in time. I was literally playing the tutorial in Wind Waker about the Miiverse, and then got a message saying the Miiverse is down. And I looked it up, and it died that day. And I'm like, oh, it's just gone now. Every time you play this game, it'll remind you the Miiverse is gone, as it teaches you about the Miiverse that doesn't exist.
But yeah, so-
I
bizarre.
remember the Miiverse.
It was
So-
cool.
A lot of people have been really upset about that for the Marble Heroes thing, it being shut down, because all the console players, like, they bought their characters within the past couple of months. Like, they haven't had years of kind of slow decline to know, yeah, this is ending soon. Like, when World of Warcraft finally goes under, people are probably going to be well aware that it was...
Oh man,
it-
that's gonna be
that is going to be
horrific.
upsetting for people.
unless
But, like,
they allow you to port your characters to whatever new.
But like
version they do.
there was a game called Tabula Rasa, which was an NCSoft game, and it only lasted, I want to say, like a year max.
Uh-huh.
That's
Oh,
the
I've
that's
heard
the one
about
that
that.
that's the game I always remember as when I started being introduced to the idea of like MMOs just disappearing.
Yep.
Because
It
I was
had
This was
awesome
by,
cover art.
Tabula
Yeah, the
Rasa
girl with
was-
the goggles.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Tabula
the cool
Rasa is the
title
Richard
and-
Garriott, like, complete disaster.
it looked
Yeah.
neat, and every time but then I just kept putting it off, like even looking at it past just like the cover and everything, basically, and it just stuck in my
Mhm.
mind. And then one day I'm like, oh, it's just gone forever. I'll never know. Bye.
Yeah.
Goodbye,
And-
Matrix Online.
And so it was a neat game. I think I heard, but like it kind of came out too early and not enough quality and all sorts of things.
Because I wouldn't want to say it's like EverQuest era.
Well,
Or
it
did- or
is.
did it
It's
come out
this
at-
came out at about the same time as Guild Wars 1, a couple years before.
All right.
Here, you can look it up. November 2007? Well, I guess it's a couple of years after World of Warcraft 1, which did kind of look like ass compared to what it currently is. But so that was the one that when it ended, they had like a 3-day long super event to like see the game off, even though it got shut down fairly fast. Like I think it got released in 2007.
So it got axed in 2 years.
And then it closed in 2008. Yeah.
Oh no, 1 year.
Released.
Wow, this is
yeah.
fascinating. Tabula Rasa became free to play January 10th, 2009, and closed in February 28th, 2009. It was free to play
month.
for like 1 month,
Wow.
and then it's like,
Oh,
no, that doesn't work.
NCSoft? Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
NC is in, like... Never mind.
NCSoft is a Korean publisher.
I
NC
thought a
Soft also
fun would
does
come to me, but then nothing did, and I was like,
Aeon
no,
and-
okay, never mind.
Blade and Soul and Guild Wars.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
No one cares, Soft.
so that
That's
one
it.
was kind
It's
of
the best.
people already kind of saw the writing on the wall, and they had like announced it, and everybody had this like nice big party. Marvel Heroes just died. They're just like,
Mhm.
nope, bye, pull the plug, and like if it was if they had actually like been honest and everybody knew that it was going on out, I think it would have been okay. But like, I feel really bad for anybody that got it on console because some people spent like hundreds of thousands. It's very expensive to get every hero and skin and so on and so forth.
Do you know what's interesting? My friend, a couple maybe months before, or maybe just immediately after, he gave me a card in like a really pretty box for Star Wars Galaxies, and I had always admired it from afar and just imagined being a Twilight bounty hunter or something cool. Any case, like, yeah, that game, it was immense, and I remember going into the stores and reading up about it and whatnot, and they had the guides and everything there, and it went away too, didn't it?
It died pretty fast. Star Wars products,
but it was like a Second Life MMO weird mixture. Like, you didn't have to be a combat class, and there were quest lines, but you didn't have to partake in them. Someone could literally be a bartender and run a cantina, and that could be their job if they really wanted to.
Is Second Life still around? Oh my god,
it is. Though dude, we should as a joke someday like do a stream where we just like load up, make monster people, run around for about 2 hours.
So much better things to do with our time than that.
I just want to mess around with the character creator because you can make some hot steaming garbage.
My roommate from freshman year.
The margin between playing Extra Life, ironically, and just playing Extra Life is really fucking narrow.
Not Extra Life. Extra Life is a stream thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, my roommate and her boyfriend, they played a lot of Second Life extensively, and it was because of the features that you could actually create things like models to sell in world, and some people became millionaires for it. I think there was I remember being on an airplane and reading about Second Life in one of those silly magazines.
Some guy bought like an asteroid or a planet in the game, and it was
he had like all of this like real he had, what do you call it? He had real estate. He had real estate in the game, and he was a millionaire because of it. And it's like, what? I just don't know. It's just perplexing. But isn't Eve also similar in the fact that people make money off of it?
Oh yeah. Well, Eve, you can like convert your in-game currency back into real money.
That's perplexing. Usually games are, you put stuff into it, but it just remains as in-game.
There was a free-to-play MMO that I played back, like, it was, I want to say 2007 to 2008. But all the money
you made off of RuneScape.
Well, that was me selling it to chumps.
That's not allowed. You violated the TOS, dude.
I did. I should be banned. Luckily, nobody knows what my RuneScape username is because it predates any kind of channel or internet presence I ever had. But so when I was in high school, middle school, I played RuneScape, and I had a lot of friends that kind of played RuneScape too. I mean, it was fun. The other alternative MMOs were like EverQuest and WoW, and well, a number of people just couldn't afford it, weren't interested, or whatever. So my brother and I kind of tag teamed the game, and we both got up to fairly high levels. I think it was above level 100. I was close. I don't remember. But I was comparatively like fairly high up there, and my brother was higher. But we would make tons of money by exploiting various things that, like, you know, 2 people could do better than 1. And so we actually found out that you could buy loads of like one type of item from NPCs and then resell them to people for a lot more money. So we spent a weekend making, like, I want to say 50 million gold in the game, which I think it's chump change now, but whatever. But we had friends who weren't smart enough, didn't know how, didn't play enough to make that amount of money themselves, but they wanted that amount of money. So we would sell it to them for about $100 per 100,000 gold in RuneScape. We made a lot of money.
But you also did that with Guild Wars, didn't you? Helping people through...
Well, I'd play Guild Wars. I had fun with that, but I never actually got real money from that.
Really? I thought that you said that there were like special dungeons or things that you had to run with them.
Wow. But never for real money. But
so
like,
I just checked it, and yeah, Marvel Heroes Omega had a 6-month lifespan on consoles.
Yep. I was not exaggerating.
Boy, oh boy. Not down yet. It's still 1 more month.
Another weird thing that I found about RuneScape, I've never touched the game, but I remember hearing about it. when I was looking up various gaming videos, a RuneScape video popped up, and apparently people make money in that game by pretending to be someone's in-game girlfriend.
Yeah.
Oh God.
What is that?
That's
That's
a
so
thing.
mean.
reminds
Catfishing
me
people
of-
in a virtual world. Oh.
Well, hey, it actually reminds me of, the guild with Felicia Day and stuff. Didn't they have that one song that's like, play with me in my MMO.
Yes.
So many
I don't
places
remember.
we
It's
can
Do You Want to Date My
go.
Avatar?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Do you want to date my avatar?
It was on Rock Band Network.
Oh yeah,
You
I
could play
love
that
that
song in Rock Band.
Her rise to
Why
fame
is it that when I type
confuses
"Do
the
you
hell out
want"
of
it
me.
immediately is like, "Do you want to date my avatar?" Why does Google
Yeah,
know
because
me?
it's so catchy. It's a
It's
beautiful
super
song.
catchy. I will
You
actually
got
look
that
it up
over. Do you
occasionally.
want to build a snowman?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, no, that
Be more
almost
basic,
makes sense.
I don't.
Maybe.
That
I don't know,
says a
never
lot
mind.
about me. That makes me sad.
It does.
That's actually how I found the guild as like a web series because
Was
that
the music
song.
video that released like 4 seasons in? Oh my God, that video's 8 years. Fuck. Stop
Yeah.
passing time.
Yeah.
That's from 2009. Now I'm remembering how long Guild's been dead.
Mhm.
I don't think
Yeah.
the Guild has had a season in like 6 years.
Well, I mean, it had like kind of a conclusive-ish ending,
Yeah.
as conclusive as a web series can have, save for killing off one of your main characters.
I'm sad that they didn't actually show what the game was.
Because
more.
it was WoW.
They kind of did, sometimes.
Yeah.
There's weird scenes that take place in it, kind of. Man, I barely remember the show anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
We have not talked about Sonic Forces even a little bit.
Hey, we can talk about Sonic Forces.
I've already
That-
checked out.
Or
well,
and I,
you
and I
get to
spent all
watch
day, and I was
the
gonna
guild
open up with
music
like how
videos then.
I had a police encounter today, and I spent all day yesterday talking about Twilight Imperium 4, but it's been a fucking dense episode.
The Elix took like half an hour, because that game
Yeah.
is...
I have not had my hand on the steering wheel for this podcast.
Ooh.
Wander
Well-
backlogged topics.
Yeah, happens. Do you want to talk about your police thing? Because Sonic Forces, like, we could talk about it, but let's
Wait,
be honest
what
here.
about police?
Yeah, let's talk about that, because honestly, you don't need to say things about Sonic. All you have to say is it's another 3D Sonic game, and everyone automatically
No.
They
understands.
reuse assets.
We're definitely gonna have to talk about Sonic like next episode or something, because it is
Sure.
a special type of bad Sonic game.
Part of it
I
is
actually
I haven't
made
played.
a good-looking character.
I haven't played Episode Shadow yet, so
The important thing
Except-
about every Sonic game is that it's bad in unique new ways.
yes,
On top
They-
of the part where
they
it doesn't
managed
control
to.
for shit.
They managed to get progressively worse with every
Also,
game.
episode Shadow's
somehow.
20 minutes.
Oh,
what?
It's only 3 levels.
Huh.
Yeah.
And how much are they charging people for it?
it's
Nothing.
Free, luckily.
but it's
Oh,
also-
okay. Okay.
There's also no reason for it to be DLC at all.
Yeah, they could have
It
just
should
put
just
it in the
be
game.
in the game. Because like people have to opt into getting it now for some reason. Like as opposed
Well,
to just
maybe-
having it be there by default.
Maybe a month or two from now.
Can
they'll
I play as
start
it a
charging.
standalone?
Just episode Shadow.
No,
Yeah.
you know what, Bird? I can let you borrow my Sonic Forces. You can download the game, play Episode Shadow, and never touch the main game.
Okay.
You can do that.
Upload it as a
Oh, it
video,
does
like,
say that it requires the base game. Well,
You
Yeah,
could,
shoot.
You could just upload the video as like, was it Sonic Forces episode Shadow standalone complex?
You could, like, I would gladly watch that happen, because that would be a very short and very
There's the-
funny 20 minutes.
Dumbest idea. Oh my god. So I was rabbit sitting again.
Oh, yeah?
Which is when I go to my parents' house and I just feed pets basically so they don't die when they're on vacation and everything.
Yep.
And I screwed up at the alarm because apparently at some point everyone in my extended family got really paranoid and got guns and alarm systems all at the same time.
Wait, what?
And yeah, I don't know.
Oh.
Just universally, everyone besides me got guns and alarm systems for their houses and everything. So I have to deal with their damn alarm system, and I slightly mispressed the code, and I'm like, oh shit, how do you like
no.
reset it to re-input from scratch? Like I didn't know how to reset it, and then the alarm transitions to the fuck you, get out of the house alarm, like the deafening horrible. No, not that. The really
No?
fast high pitched one that like hurts.
Oh, so it goes. I see. So there's two alarms. There's two alarms. There's like deed,
There's the
deed,
yeah.
deed, and that means like
It just
just
starts
go ahead
beeping
and
with
like
the moment.
turn it off. And then
Yeah.
when you let it go all the way, it goes like it's like
It
really
gets really
horrible.
loud and
Okay.
fast and horrible. It resulted in me like out front, like how do I reset your alarm? Like trying to text and call and shit, and they're in a place where they don't have cell phone reception, so it's like not working.
So were people like coming out of their houses and looking at
No,
you?
no
and
one
is
gave
it...
a shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because everyone's so used to all alarms being false anyway that nobody even takes them seriously. Which
Yeah.
Right.
defeats
like the
purpose.
car ones outside all the time.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But like there was these horrible moments of like trying to run into the house and like see if I could press buttons on the thing, and I was trying to like that hesitation of like I don't want to take my hands off my ears because of how horrible it is to stand in this room, but I need to press the buttons with my hand, and I'm like, this is the worst thing. Eventually I just gave up and went back outside, and the alarm just stopped. And then I went in, and when I went in again, it was just beeping again, and so I just put it in the code to make it shut up, and we went on about my day feeding animals and stuff. The cat had lost its shit.
Because of the alarms, probably.
Yeah, it seemed incredibly insecure because it rubbed its like face scent glands on me like 70 times,
Oh, it
just
means it
going for
loved
my hands
you.
over and over again. And that cat does not like me. That cat does not like me. I've come here so many times. This is the first time this has happened because it's like so on edge. It keeps looking in all the different directions. Stuff. Rabbit doesn't give a shit. Rabbit is unfazed by loud noises apparently. I'm feeding the rabbit, and like I put the food bowl, and I'm like, as an apology, I put like treats on top of it, and the rabbit like stomps the bowl out of my hand before it even reaches the ground because it's just this bossy little bastard. And
You're
it's like,
mixing
no,
them
food
together."
on floor now. It's like, and it's like
No.
he just stomps it down so he can start eating faster and just bury his face in the food, like totally apparently unfazed by horrible loud noises that I had to flee from. And these are supposed to be animals that are sensitive to sound. But I start hearing sounds, and I'm like, is somebody home? Right? I'm like, there can't be somebody who was home, right? Because like the whole alarm part happened. But I knew I heard voices and like kind of like a knocking or something, like not a door knock, but just like a noise of like touching a hard thing or something. And I realized that there's two police outside.
Nice. Yep.
They got
actually
alerted.
showed up.
Yeah, they did show up.
Mhm.
The immediate primal fear kicks in of just like I am on the inside of a building and things are outside of the building, and I don't like it's like every movie ever where it's like weirdly unnerving in that setting because they didn't knock. They were just like they were clearly like trying to peek through windows and tell what the situation was, but they didn't knock or ring the doorbell or anything like that. And so I was like, so I didn't answer the door because I'm like they didn't knock or anything. So I'm just like in this weird standoff where I'm like peeking through I was peeking through the weaving that like the part that the thread goes through in blinds to hold the blinds together. I was
Hey.
peeking through those tiny holes so that I wouldn't be seen in reverse, and I was just in this weird standoff of like
you're gonna do the
watching
most
these people.
suspicious act that you could do. Good
My
instincts,
parents
Keith.
and I,
Good instincts.
at home, we would do this all the time whenever a solicitor would come to the door. And the funny thing is, I need to go up to the stairs, except the stairs are visible from the front door windows. and I was just like, Mom, what do I do? And I'm like hiding behind things because you don't want them to see you because then they'll know that you're there.
I have played the hide from solicitors game several times. Of like I'm just not entering that room for a while until they leave on their own.
So what did the
Damn.
police do then?
They stayed there for a surprisingly long time. Eventually I think they were just wasting their time on just like having a conversation and chilling out in the front yard for a while before getting in their car and leaving.
I don't think
This
they're
is just
allowed to
routine for
legally
them.
enter because they don't have like a warrant or something like that. So they have to wait until they
Yeah.
get a visual confirmation that something is happening before they actually enter the building.
I was surprised they didn't even like knock.
They're supposed to knock.
No, they didn't. I was
That's
just like
really
generally
weird.
baffled as this was going on.
Well, wouldn't a potential thief or robber stay stock silent and not do anything either way?
Well, they'll look for
Like-
signs of breaking and entering and stuff like that. Sure.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And if anything, what I did seemed to prove that standing still works pretty well. So I just stood there and then they left.
Well, it turns out that that those alarm systems are generally not very secure. You know, the thing that everybody already knew. So.
Hey
God,
guys,
I remember all the times we'd have to where somebody would have to go check the shop in the middle of the night because the alarm went off and stuff like that, and like figuring out, oh great, it just went off again. Thanks. I guess maybe something fell over, or maybe it just felt like ruining the night.
Did I ever tell you guys about the terrible security system on the first car I ever had?
No.
It was the one. Okay, so after my grandfather passed away, his car came to me. And I was like, okay, this is an incentive.
Oh, the security system was his ghost.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
So I actually learned how to drive, got my license and everything. This was probably when I was 20. Yeah, I hadn't gotten all that done until then because I didn't really have a reason to drive around on campus when I lived on campus, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing summer school work, and one day, I don't know if it was the sun or something, but the car would not start. All the other teachers in the parking lot were going, oh, can we help jumpstart your car? And I'm like, the battery is fine. Everything's fine. It just won't. You turn the key in the ignition, it goes, and nothing happens. I go, okay. So my parents get it checked out and whatever, and they go, oh, you know, maybe it's just the fuel pump isn't working. It didn't seem to ignite it. So, you know, here. We'll change the pump out for you. A couple $100 later, and a couple days later, I'm back out in the parking lot, getting ready to go home after the summer school, and oh, for goodness sake, what's going on? My parents at this point are like, it can't be. We just got a new fuel pump. So they call AAA, and AAA's like, wait a minute, what's the model of the car? What's the year of the model? Oh, I see. That is the security system that they implemented in Oldsmobiles in those days. What it does is if it perceives that it is being entered by someone who is not the owner of the vehicle, it will prevent the fuel from reaching the ignition and suspend the car until the key is inserted just so for approximately 10 minutes. And then the security light will turn off and you'll be free to use your car.
Yeah.
I know, and I didn't get the manual. I didn't even know that the car had a security system like that. So my parents spent all this money to get a new fuel pump on something that was easily the security system. And the funny thing was, I was just like, okay, well, what sets it off? Like, I just opened the car manually and everything. What am I doing that makes it think it's being stolen? And they're like, eh. But once I was carting Wander and his parents around campus because, you know, hey, I have a car now. I can take them places around Rochester. I need to get gas. So I pull into the gas station, fill it up with gas, get back into the car. The security light turns on. And his parents are like in the back seat, and they're like, what's going on, Michelle? Can we leave? And I'm like, we can't leave, not for 10 minutes. And I put the key into the ignition, and we have to sit there for 10 minutes. People were probably angry that I was, you know, just hogging up a spot in the fuel pump lane for no reason, but
wow.
The car ended up dying for unrelated reasons.
There.
Later, but my parents actually had to get a mechanic to turn that thing off permanently.
Before I forget it, there's Cuphead glitches that need to be discussed.
But
Cuphead
the
glitches?
podcast has only got 30 more seconds.
That's not how this works.
I gotta feed
Also,
my
it's already
rabbit, so
over 2
yes, it
hours
is
for
how
me.
it works.
It's just for a bit. It's not like a full discussion or anything. We already had a Cuphead discussion in the previous few podcasts ago about like the co-op mess and the general game play and stuff like that. But something that feels weirdly overlooked is like this game's getting so much praise and everything, and I feel like there's no I have not yet encountered any sort of undercurrent narrative about like the massive bugs and like blatant repeatable 100% occurrence rate bugs that are throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like have you guys heard about bugs in this game?
Mm-hmm.
As
There's
outsiders?
a lot.
It's
There's some that like
really
break
seen much
boss
of the game.
fights. There's some
Didn't
terrible
you like
bugs.
get to the end of the dragon, which was like pure hell, and it almost froze on you?
So we've had multiple boss fights that have literally frozen in that there's just a reoccurring bug where there's multiple freezing bugs in the game, but one of the ones I've specifically found out about is that if you use the parry attack, if you parry whenever there's more than one parryable thing in your hitbox, it immediately locks the game, and you have to reboot it. And that wasn't caught, apparently. Then there's the minor glitch that everyone encounters the moment they start playing, which is that if you do anything that causes your controller to vibrate, like taking damage, there's a pretty good chance it'll just keep vibrating until the next time you do something that causes it to vibrate. Like it'll just go continuously for like 30 seconds and just keep going. But it got worse and worse as we got to the end of the game, to the point where the final boss fight is marred by multiple, infinitely repeatable, always there bugs, including unavoidable damage.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a game about taking only like 3 hits to beat a boss. It has unavoidable damage in it. Like, that's an okay thing to have happen. Because the devil does this thing where he goes like as a serpent. He turns into a serpent and he comes from one side of the screen to the other side of the screen, but leaves just enough space at the end for you to not get hit. And then he retreats. And if he does that in one direction, you're fine. If he does that in the other direction, his retreat animation hurts you even if you're in the save space. And it happens 100% of the time. And I'm like, how does the final boss fight have unavoidable damage that was never caught at any point during testing in the final released project? Mm-hmm. And a really great one is that if player 1 dies in co-op, then when you go to the phase changes of the devil, then you can't continue because you're supposed to jump in a hole, and it waits for both players to jump in the hole, and it'll just wait forever.
Oh.
And you can't continue the boss fight, like this kind of stuff. And it's so replicatable. It's so like none of these are freak accidents. None of these are weird edge cases. They're super common gameplay elements, and they constantly happen and constantly fuck up the game.
Well,
and
spoiler alert, they spent all their time drawing.
Yeah, and like bafflingly, it's been like 2 months and the game hasn't had a single patch.
Yeah.
Like, what? That's like not okay. That's like inexcusable. Because like they either didn't test their game, which I doubt, or they just shipped it with all these bugs on purpose, knowing they were there, even though no matter how severe some of them were. And then also still 2 months later haven't patched them, and I'm like, holy
Was it
crap.
just difficulties with multiplayer? Because I know some companies primarily make a game with the intention of single player, and they're like, okay, well, we want multiplayer in it, but then they don't.
No, both
thoroughly...
the bugs exist on both sides.
Oh, really?
I honestly
There's
would not
constant
be
bugs in the game. It's a weird mess.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they hadn't they more or less finished it and they're like, okay, we're done. We're going on vacation. We'll see you later, internet. And they just don't want to.
Like, wow, it sure is convenient that there's a really positive narrative going on around our game right now. That'll overshadow all of the problems the game has that we might never fix. That's just... It's a bummer because the game's neat, but I'm like, how? Like, at least in Sonic games, the bugs are usually like weird freak accidents. Not 100% always happens that way every single time in a super common scenario. On the final boss fight, like the most important fight ever, possibly.
It could be one of those things that's connected permanently to something else, and they know that they can't change it. I was actually watching things because everyone's been hyped about the release of a vanilla WoW server or something. Everyone's like, yeah, you get to play the original stuff. Supposedly the reason why, no matter what happens in the game, throughout all the expansions, everything, you have that initial backpack with so many slots in it, and you can never upgrade it or change it or anything, is because it's intrinsically tied to the game, and like to try to remove it or alter it would actually break it. I find that fascinating.
Specifically, if you remove the backpack, quest rewards are no longer accessible. You can't get them anymore. For every quest in the game. And they'd have to
It's just that they've changed every other part of the Jenga tower, but that's the one tile on the bottom that's just stuck there forever.
There's a couple more things, but that was the one that stood out to me.
That's funny.
And it's just... I hope they make WoW 2 just...
WoW 2?
Dude, why not?
They were working on it. It got canceled.
Well, I thought they were working on something called
anyway.
Titan.
Yeah, they're
that's
working
long
on
dead.
Titan. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be great if they could
same-
hop.
Yeah, I
was the
gotta
podcast.
feed my rabbits.
I gotta cut Bird loose or he'll eat us or something. I don't know.
I have
But
to
he's
feed my pets.
vegetarian.
They're
Feed us
already
to his
wabu wabbits.
they're already 30. I'm already 30 minutes late feeding them. So
Are you still mad I killed your wabbit? Your
no,
wabbit
I'm not
friend
mad.
in
I'm
game?
just disappointed.
I'm happy.
Nah,
It felt good. It made me more powerful.
nah.
I had to eat a
See
pulsating
you guys next time.
heart thing. Gross.
3, 2, 1, go.
Bird, do you know when you're gonna be back? Half an hour?
It's usually like 15-20 minutes. Dinner
Okay.
and feeding things.
Okay.
The
Thanks,
stream is gonna go down for a little bit.